Hey guys, Raphael here of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Did you say podcast? Dudes, dudettes, you're listening to the podcast on the Geekcast Radio Network. Cowabunga!
Today on episode 57 of the Cinema Geeks,
we discuss the future of the James Bond franchise and why it might be up in the air.
We let you know about a Disney live-action film that you probably didn't see coming.
We debate the merits of Sylvester and the Master.
And we dissect the term original when it comes to Hollywood.
All that and more coming up on episode 57 with the Cinema Geeks.
That's right, it is episode 57 of the Cinema Geeks, and as you heard, we're all here. I am one of your hosts, Kevin Optimus Solo, and joining me, as always, is Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. And Hard Candy Mandy Amanda. Hello.
Hello.
That's a mouthful to say. Just pointing that out there.
You're welcome.
All right, Dan, how's your week been going? Any pooping, peeing, or baby stories?
Trying to think. Actually, today we did, I did have a mid-poop while pooping story I was changing, and then it's like, it's still coming. So that was fun. But no, besides that, I mean, I think last week I talked about the Rangers going to Game 7, and that did not work out at all.
Apparently Hyro didn't listen until from True Bromance, and he must have listened to the show like yesterday or whatever. So he's hearing us talk about who the Rangers will play next when it's already been at that point determined that we've already had Game 1 with the Blackhawks and the Lightning. So
yeah, I don't know.
We sounded dated already.
Anytime I know you're a Miami Dolphins fan, but I feel like anytime like a professional Florida team goes to the finals, it's not a good thing because they never support their teams. But I just it's, especially Tampa Bay. Come on,
or the Marlins.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not bitter. But besides that, it's been going pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm not either because we slashed the Lightning last night.
Yeah, I'm rooting hard for the Blackhawks,
So you guys can be friends for this.
Original six, got to stick together.
Amanda, how's your week been going?
Pretty good. Same old. Nothing exciting. No poop stories on this end.
No poop stories from you either?
Nope.
Oh. We'd all have one. I'm not going to share mine anymore. No,
it's a long drive home, and
Yeah, I don't think I have anything fun or comedic or exciting from this week either. It must have been pretty lame.
Pretty lame, yeah.
I'm glad you're agreeing with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So as we do every week, we'll take a look at the box office, and you guys can just continue to build. We're not going to post a record anywhere, are we?
Well, I was off with my prediction.
Oh, you were off too, so you joined me in the cellar. But now Amanda must be in first place overall. So Amanda, what was your prediction last week?
I can't keep track of my predictions.
They're too good. You don't. They just come to you in a flash of brilliance. Then you forget about them instantly.
I do. Yeah, exactly.
Didn't you have San Andreas in number 1? I swear you did.
Yeah.
I don't remember. What did you say, Dan?
I believe so. Yeah, because mine was I said San Andreas would be number 1, but only make $30 million. And
so you qualified it. You shouldn't have qualified it.
Yeah, so that was my mistake.
And I had Avengers falling out of the top 5 because you figured Pitch Perfect, Tomorrowland, and Mad Max were all out there. We had 2 new ones with San Andreas and Aloha. I thought it would be the first time that Avengers fell out of the top 5, yet it remained right at number 5. So I am wrong for the second week in a row. So Amanda, you get the crown this week and overall so far, and Dan sits in second place, and I will be in last. And I'll try to do better this week. So looking at the box office, like I said, San Andreas came in first. Dan undershot it a little bit because it made $54 million. Pitch Perfect 2 remained in second place with $14 more million. Tomorrowland went from number 1 down to number 3 with only $14 million, struggling to even get to halfway to its budget. Mad Max Fury Road went from the 3rd spot to the 4th spot. It is over the 100 million mark by a decent amount there, and it should hopefully make its budget here in the next couple weeks. Avengers Age of Ultron, like I said, stayed in the 5th spot, so now it's got a total gross of 427 million domestically, not too shabby. And the other new one, Aloha, opened up at number 6 with bad reviews and only just shy of 10 million from the box office. Dan, any surprises or anything of note that you saw there at the box office this week?
Not necessarily. I guess I said San Andreas. I shouldn't have doubted The Rock. I don't know what I was thinking. That wasn't my first mistake. But no, everything else. I mean, Aloha probably did I guess that's not too surprising considering I got like awful reviews, but
Right.
So.
And Furious 7, for those involved in the Film Fantasy League, I'm hoping it's done making money because it is real close to the 350 mark. It only needs a little bit. Probably by the time we've recorded this, it's already passed it. So there's going to be more points for those that have Furious 7 cast members. It was at the time of the weekend, it was at 349 million. So. What about predictions from this week? Anybody got one that they already know that they're gonna? Let's go over which new ones are actually coming out. We have the comedy film Spy coming out. We have Insidious Chapter 3. I don't know if you'd consider any of these other ones big releases. Besides those two, I don't think so.
Is Entourage coming out this week or is that next week?
I believe Entourage already came out. I think it was like a midweek release.
Okay.
So I believe it came out yesterday at the time of this record. So I guess it would qualify into the weekend too. So what are you guys thinking? Who has a prediction they're ready to throw out there?
I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna try to be bold here. And with all those 3 new films and the fact that it got like awful word of mouth, and I don't think I have not seen a positive thing about it. I'm gonna say Aloha drops out of the top 10 for next week.
Out of the top 10 in the second week?
Yeah.
That is, I can see that happening. Nobody's saying anything good about that film, so I can see that happening. Amanda, what about you? Going with another number one?
No, I think I want to throw Insidious 3 in the top 10. Is that too vague?
I don't know. I don't know much about how the horror films do. I think that seems like a safe bet, but maybe not. I don't know how Insidious 2 did, so...
I know the first one did well, but it was like one of those where it just kept doing well, and I'm not sure about the second one. But I think you would have a good chance of that happening for sure.
She's just trying to protect her lead now. She's playing defense.
I am.
I will make another stupid prediction. Let's go with Spy opening up at number 1.
Oh, wow.
I know that seems easy because it's the first week out there, but so far I've heard a lot of good things about it that I didn't expect to hear. So maybe word of mouth is going to fuel that into number 1. Sometimes sometimes that random comedy just does well. So I'm going to go with Melissa McCarthy at the number 1 spot next week and try to get my first correct prediction.
It's got a pretty groovy cast.
Groovy?
Yeah.
All right, so that is our predictions for the box office. Looking at the yearly totals so far, I think I said I was going to do that this week. If not, oh well, I'm doing it anyways. Obviously, Avengers is in the number 1 spot with $428 million. Furious 7, number 2 with $349. Cinderella still clinging onto that 3rd spot. Needs a few more dollars, folks. If you haven't gone and seen Cinderella, please take your family. I need just another million or two there so it can break the 200 million mark. So, hey, I need points, all right? The animated film Home is in the 4th spot with 170. 50 Shades of Grey in number 5 with 166. The only other movies that have made over 100 are SpongeBob, Pitch Perfect 2, Insurgent, Kingsman: The Secret Service, and Mad Max: Fury Road. So we'll see how that goes. And Dan, how are you feeling so far about your box office predictions from earlier this year?
Not very good. I had Tomorrowland up there, and I had I had the 50 Shades of Grey within the top 15, and that might make it, but yeah, Tomorrowland I think is going to be the one that does not do really well.
Yeah, I'm hoping a few of those make a little bit more money, but and you guys had Furious 7. You had a Furious 7 a little bit higher than I did, so I think you're closer with that one. So, but most of the movies I think we had in the top 10 have not been released yet. So, a lot still to come, especially as the summer season heats up. So let's get into our news. We're going to go back to thumbs up or thumbs down for the news, since we have a whole bunch of stuff. I don't want to skip anything because there's quite a few interesting pieces of news out there. So we'll cover it in a thumbs up, thumbs down fashion, starting with one thing that we teased in the opening, which was a live-action Disney film that you might not have seen coming. I don't know. Have you guys both seen Fantasia?
Yes.
Okay, so the headline here is Disney adapting the Night on Bald Mountain Fantasia sequence into a live-action film. Do you guys remember that sequence from Fantasia?
No. I'm not gonna.
Neither did I. But it's a section that has the winged creature. According to the article, raises various spirits and beings from the dead, and after a night of devilish cavorting, everyone returns to their respective worlds. Apparently, they have the writers from Dracula Untold. They want to go somewhere along the line of the tone of like Maleficent from last year. And I don't know. We have a whole bunch of Disney remakes, Disney live action type thing. We've already talked about Maleficent. We had Cinderella this year. The Beauty and the Beast is in the works. Another Alice in Wonderland film, Jungle Book, Mulan, Tinkerbell have all been rumored. I don't know if anybody would predict a sequence from Fantasia turning into a live action film. Dan, thumbs up or thumbs down for Night on Black Mountain or Bald Mountain, or whatever this is called.
My first thought is go with thumbs down, just the idea of like another live action adaptation, but I don't know, it does seem like it's different from what they're doing so far. I mean, like you said, Maleficent, but it might be something different. I feel like I'd give a better answer if I remember that segment, which I don't at all. But it sounds intriguing enough, and something at least outside of their like known franchises, so I'll go thumbs up.
I'm kind of in the same vein as you. If it was just another, like, if it was, I don't know, if it was Fox and the Hound, the live-action version, I would be a little...
Please, no.
What's wrong with Fox and the Hound?
That's great. I just don't think we need a live-action version of it.
Homeward Bound style, with the narration over the real live animals walking around. But since I don't really recall much about Fantasia, as far as, like, specific scenes and whatnot, outside of maybe a couple, I'm with Dan. I'm thinking this is a different enough idea and a little bit outside the box that maybe it would be cool. I don't know if there would be as much of a audience for it, or as much of a, I don't know if it's just going to automatically make money like Cinderella or some of that stuff will. It might be a little bit harder to sell at the box office, but I think maybe it has potential to be a better or more intriguing film. So I'm going to go with thumbs up on this one as well. What about you, Amanda?
I've seen Fantasia and Fantasia 2000, and I don't remember this scene at all, but after hearing A Night of Devilish Cavorting, I'm kind of in. I'm going to do a thumbs up. Sounds like my party.
All right, so 3 thumbs up for a Disney live-action adaptation. Who would have thunk it? All right, let's move into the requirements as far as Cinema Geek content. We're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars, not just once. We're going to talk about them at least twice. So let's start with the first one here. The article reads, Ewan McGregor edges closer to Obi-Wan trilogy. So we already know that Star Wars is doing their episodic movies with Episode 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. And we also know that they are doing the anthology movies, which will kind of be interspersed every other. So we know about Rogue One and the Boba Fett story and stuff like that. Apparently, this rumor here, or this news story, is outside of both of those. And if that's not enough Star Wars, if one movie a year is not enough, they're talking about the possibility of, could there ever be a trilogy just strictly based on the Obi-Wan character? Ewan McGregor apparently has been very vocal about the fact that he would love to play the character again. Is this overkill? Thumbs up or thumbs down for an Obi-Wan trilogy, Dan?
I go big thumbs down. I like Obi-Wan. I think Ewan McGregor is probably one of the best things about the prequels, but I just, like, it's overkill. I don't feel like we need it. I don't want to get to the point where there's so many Star Wars films that it's own genre. Like, have like, the overkill like we do with superhero films. So I feel like his story's kind of been told, I feel like, there are some gaps there, but maybe as a comic or something like that, but I don't think we need it as a movie, so I'm going thumbs down.
Amanda, thumbs up, thumbs down to Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan, 3 movies.
I'll give it a thumbs up. I really liked Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, and I think it'd be cool to see some more of his story.
I think the only thing that would intrigue me about that, I did like you guys. I did like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. I thought that was one of the highlights of the film, especially what we got to see from him in Episode 3. And so that's intriguing, and I guess if they were somehow, I don't know how many possibilities there were to show any type of gap between him and like Darth Maul or something like that. It seems like we kind of got, I don't know, that wasn't like there was a missing time period or something, unless I'm just blanking out on the original or the prequel trilogy because it's burned different things in my head. But so I mean, Darth Maul, if it was appearing, that'd be cool, and a little bit more Obi-Wan. But I think maybe we should probably stay away from that time period in the Star Wars universe and do a little bit more from what we've actually heard as far as connecting it more with the original trilogy and staying a little bit further distance from the prequels. So I don't necessarily think I myself could get overkilled with Star Wars stuff, but I want the movies to be good, and the more they do, the less likely it is that they're all going to be great. So I'm going to go with the thumbs down on this one. Let's stay away from the old prequel stuff. All right, going on to the next one. I didn't know much about this, and maybe you guys as horror fans know more about Stephen King, but early talks of a Stephen King movie based on The Dark Tower. Now, Dan or Amanda, do you guys know anything about this story or Stephen King books in general?
Yeah, I mean, I've read a few Stephen King books, like The Stand is one of my favorite, and I have not read the Dark Tower series, but or the actual book, but I've read some of the comics that are based on Dark Tower. Which is it's kind of like this Western, like dystopia. It's an odd idea, but it's intriguing. I could definitely see it being a good movie.
And the article kind of describes it as a blend of Western sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and drama.
Yes, that's very much the case.
And apparently, it's a long series. This isn't just a novel.
Yeah.
This is like a series of books. So the idea is to create a film and then possibly create, like everybody, create this whole little movie universe based on this series of books. Apparently, also it has been in the works, or different people have wanted to do stuff with this story for a long time, and just nothing has quite landed or happened. So now we're talking about this individual. Does anybody know how to say this guy's name?
I do not.
Nicola Arcel, and then there's a J in there that we're just going to pretend is silent.
What's J? One of those classic silent J's.
Yeah, those are always silent. So he co-wrote the original Swedish adaptation of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and directed A Royal Affair. So I don't know what much to think about this, because I haven't read a lot of Stephen King stuff, so I don't know if I would like it or not. But it seems like I agree with the article that it seems like nowadays is the time for this type of blend of genres, and it seems like there's definitely audiences for this type of thing. Amanda, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down on a series of movies based on Stephen King's Dark Tower?
Well, I haven't read the series or many Stephen King novels. I was too busy reading Goosebumps books, so sue me. I haven't read it, but hearing the description, Western, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, whatever we're going to call it, sounds pretty cool. I'd be down to watch it, definitely. I'm not sure how much it'll take off, but if it does have its own little movie verse, 7 movies, I think it'd be pretty cool.
If it had said sci-fi, fantasy, horror, action, would you be more excited?
Well, there's some action westerns, there's some gunslinging, and
it's
it sounds
all of your
like
favorite genres
together. Just put it all in there.
Right.
But it sounds like Firefly or Serenity or whatever. But
Stephen King style. Langoliers, wasn't that Stephen King? Or am I being stupid?
It's like Joss Whedon, something like that.
So you gave it a thumbs up?
I'm gonna give it a thumbs up.
All right, Dan, how about you?
I think I'll go thumbs up as well. I know, like, when this has been talked about forever, though. I feel like it's one of those projects that'll be talked about and never ever happened. Because I think Ron Howard was going to do it originally, and it was going to be like a TV series as well and movie. Like, it was going to be like a combo, which was intriguing. Which I think which people are like debated if it would happen. Doesn't seem like that would. I don't know. I think you could do something like this. It's kind of like maybe do what Game of Thrones did for Western, or did for fantasy. This could do for like that type of Western genre, like different, and it's certainly like I've not read the books, but like I mentioned with the comics, they're complex. I mean, there's some seriousness going on, so I think it could lead to some good movies. I know a lot of Stephen King books have led to really bad movies, but some good ones. I like The Mist. I think that's great. Stand By Me, good. Definitely. But
which one were you saying, Amanda?
Dreamcatcher.
I've never seen it, so.
That's on the bad side?
Yeah. I was scared. But it's got Donnie Wahlberg in it, I think.
Oh, so it's great then, right?
Donnie Wahlberg reference on the show today.
But he went full retard. And you never go full retard. You know that it just ruins the movie. So thanks, Donnie Wahlberg. You've ruined Dreamcatcher.
He's done that in life, though, so let's... When he married Jenny McCarthy. Anyways. I'd go thumbs up, is what I'm saying, please.
All right, so a thumbs up from both of you, and I will give it a completely ignorant thumbs up because it's based on nothing but kind of the genres and what you guys have said. So I know nothing about this. I have no faith that I will like this, but I'm going to say I'll give it a chance, and I'm not going to write it off yet. So thumbs up for me as well. All right, next up, we were talking about we'll be talking about The Rock a little bit later when we give a few thoughts on San Andreas, but we're already talking about what he might be doing next. Dwayne Johnson will remake Big Trouble in Little China.
Get out of there, Kurt Russell.
Anyway, so Dwayne Johnson is set to star, produce a remake of John Carpenter's action caper Big Trouble in Little China. Dan, have you seen the original Big Trouble in Little China?
Oh yeah. It's it's John Carpenter at his most John Carpenter-ness, I guess.
Amanda, you've seen it?
I haven't seen the whole thing, no, so I need to revisit it. I'm pretty sure it's on the Netflix.
It is.
The NetTube.
It is. I think it is on the Netflix.
I don't think there's a such thing as a NetTube.
The NetTube.
I think that's something dangerous. And apparently a script's being worked on by the same guys that did X-Men First Class. Obviously, the original was back in 1982, and like we already mentioned, Kurt Russell was involved in that. So again, part sci-fi, part horror, and all action. Thumbs up or thumbs down, Dan, for a remake starring The Rock. That's the important part of Big Trouble in Little China.
Like I said, I shouldn't have doubted The Rock when it came to the box office, but this isn't more so based on The Rock, but it's just the fact that every John Carpenter movie that's been remade tends to be awful. The remake of The Thing, Assault on Precinct 13, there's something about John Carpenter like that. Like you can't do it with a big budget. You need to be like a low budget out of the studio system type of movie for it to work. I don't know. Maybe that's the charm to it. So I don't know. I don't think it. I feel bad doubting The Rock, but maybe he'll surprise me. But I'm going to go thumbs down.
All right, thumbs down for you, Amanda.
I'm going to give it a thumbs up. I feel like it's up my alley here.
Did you just love The Rock?
I love The Rock, and anything that even has anything remotely close to those genres thrown together, I'm all about.
Is it bad that we use words that we usually only use together, and we are letting them fly in podcast land?
It's only because we're weird.
All right, anyways. I am going to side with Dan on this one. I'm going to give this one a thumbs down. I'm not trying to doubt The Rock. I love Dwayne Johnson, but nothing about this really intrigues me too much, so I'm with Dan. I'm going to say probably thumbs down on this one unless I see something that drastically changes my mind.
You know those t-shirts that says, like, Jesus is my homeboy? I feel like I need one that says Dwayne Johnson is my homeboy.
I'll look for one.
Let's make it happen.
Christmas presents. All right. A couple of news stories about Spider-Man. We're talking about... I don't know. I'm so not interested in Spider-Man rumors anymore, but we're going to talk about them anyways. A short list of actors once again, and a short list of directors. The names being thrown out there for directors are Ted Melfi and Jonathan Levine, who did St. Vincent and Warm Bodies in reverse order. I shouldn't have done it like that. Other people thrown out there before were Jason Moore from Pitch Perfect, Jared Hess from Napoleon Dynamite, John Francis Daly and Jonathan M. Goldstein, who are doing the upcoming Vacation remake. What do you think of the names being thrown out here, Dan, for director of Spider-Man? I guess it's not really a thumbs up or thumbs down because there's multiple different people up there, but does anyone intrigue you on that list?
Levine does, the guy who did Warm Bodies, because he also did 50-50, which I liked a lot. And, I think I could see a lot of parallels with like, the combination of action, comedy, drama with all those films when it comes to Spider-Man. So I think that name does intrigue me. And for, like, actor, I think Asa Butterfield has been the one I'm hearing a lot for that role, and I'm indifferent towards him. I think, to me, he seems humorless, which would be tough for Spider-Man, but maybe he could prove me wrong. But that would be my worry. Just he doesn't have that like charm that I would associate with Spider-Man. But maybe he could turn it on. I guess I don't know.
Who did we see recently that we said would be perfect for Spider-Man? We saw somebody in a movie, some kid, and we were like, man, that kid would be perfect for Spider-Man. I don't remember. I'm with you, Dan, as far as some of the directors named. I mean, I liked 50-50. I liked St. Vincent enough. I liked Pitch Perfect.
Undertaken.
Maybe not, Pitch Perfect? Maybe not as huge as everybody else was on Napoleon Dynamite, but it was decent at the time. Obviously haven't seen Vacation, so I can't talk about those guys, but I'm not opposed to the different names that are being thrown out here. I've liked at least one thing that each one of those guys has done, so I'm all for that, and I'm completely indifferent on the actors so far. Obviously, I'd prefer Andrew Garfield, but they're going for the younger version, so I'm just open to whatever they pick out there, and hopefully they find somebody good, but none of the names are necessarily making me jump up and down. What about you, Amanda, for directors or actors for Spider-Man?
In the same way, I'm gonna give it a thumb sideways because I really can't say yes or no. I've seen Warm Bodies, St. Vincent, Pitch Perfect. I mean, I've seen these, but trying to apply them to the Spider-Man universe or whatever you want to call it, I just can't put them together. Besides, maybe the Warm Bodies has like the closest link for me. So I don't know. Maybe we'll go with this Jonathan Levine guy. Go for that one.
All right, so that's it for Spider-Man. Hopefully there's people out there that are more interested in Spider-Man than I am right now. I like the character. He was always my favorite comic book character when I was little, but I think it's the same type of thing that a lot of people have felt with the whole Batman versus Superman or Marvel stuff. Like, I don't need a new article every single week on a new short list of actors being thought about for Spider-Man. Just, like, cast him already. It's coming up. You got to get started on Captain America Civil War, so let's go. Let's get the casting done and stop the rumors.
I agree with Dan. I mean, like, Asa Butterfield, I feel like he doesn't have the comedy factor. I feel like he's devoid of that, so it'll be interesting to see, what emerges from these rumors.
For sure. All right, let's go back to the world of Disney. Why not? Some people are going to be upset about this news story, so I apologize up front. I'm not one of them, so I'm not going to be too sincere in my apology, I guess. But we're talking about Tron 3, and the news is that Disney has officially axed it. Done. No more. Tron 3 not happening. Why? Probably because Disney is doing 3 movies a year on Star Wars and 7 movies a year in the Marvel Universe, and they really don't care about Tron. I don't know. I've not seen any of the Tron films, I don't think, because it's never been something that's interested me. I don't know why. I know a lot of people love them. Dan, what do you think about Tron 3 not happening? Thumbs up, thumbs down, and what did you think about the other Tron stuff?
I didn't like the first Tron. I didn't like the second Tron, so I am thumbs up on Tron 3. I know it's like maybe sacrilegious for some geeks, but I don't think it's a good movie. I think, there are elements for it to be influential on, like, the when it comes to special effects and stuff like that, but as a movie, it's not very good, at least in my opinion. So I had no interest in Tron 3, and I'm completely okay with it not happening. So,
all right, that's 2 of us saying thumbs up with it being shut down. We don't care. What about you, Amanda?
I'm going to say thumbs down. I didn't see much of the 82 Tron, but I did see the Olivia Wilde, who's Jeff Bridges? Is that who's in the...
There's Garrett Hedlund and Olivia Wilde, but I didn't see it, so I don't know who
Yes,
else
there's Jeff Bridges, and then there's young Jeff Bridges, which was like the computer animated, altered version of him, which was not very convincing.
It wasn't very well done, but I think that seeking what they're seeking off this new one with the premise of Cora's life being the focal point, I think it'd be kind of cool. I think she was the most interesting part of Tron 2.
You just want to see Jared Leto with whatever role they were rumoring him to be in?
Jared Leto creeps me out after Requiem of a Dream. I just can't look at him the same anymore. Is that him? That was him, right? Yeah.
So, all right. So 1 thumbs down and 2 thumbs up for Tron 3 being axed. Dan and I have no heart for the Tron fans out there, apparently. Let's talk more about remakes and sequels. Layer Cake. Layer Cake sequel in the works, possibly. This is all coming from Jason Statham as he's making the rounds to promote his new film, Spy. Talking about the 2004 gangster flick, who a lot of people probably mentioned in passing or a little bit here with when Kingsman came out, since Matthew Vaughn was the one that did Layer Cake, and it's probably one of the one films, if you had to pick a film that people haven't seen of Matthew Vaughn's, it might be Layer Cake. So now they're talking about making a second one. No clue yet if Matthew Vaughn will actually be connected, but it seems like Jason Statham is all about this. So, Dan, have you seen Layer Cake?
Yes, I have.
And what do you think about Layer Cake 2?
no, just don't do it. It's not a movie that needs a sequel, and I mean it's weird because like Daniel Craig was like the main character in that, and it does feel like Daniel Craig's like tryout to be Bond is very much in that vein. Mm-hmm. I think it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong, I like it, but it doesn't need a sequel. I don't know why you would do one. So I would say no, Jason Statham. I know he can't say no to sequels, but maybe do Spy 2 maybe instead of Layer Cake 2.
There you go. So thumbs down from Dan. What do you think, Amanda?
I feel like I dropped the Vaughn ball here because that's one of his movies that I haven't seen. So I can't really give it an intelligent thumbs up or thumbs down, but...
that's fair. You can do that.
So we'll do that.
All right. I will give it a thumbs down just because it involves Jason Statham. I'm just kidding. I just can't take that guy serious. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that he hasn't done some interesting, okay stuff. I don't know. Let's move on to something else. Casting as far as Independence Day 2. The article that came out this last week was a new cast member being named, and that cast member was William Fichtner. Obviously added to a cast that we kind of already know with a lot of people outside of obviously Will Smith not returning, but we got Jeff Goldblum and all the other people that are going to be involved. What do you think about this addition to Independence Day 2, Dan? Does it make you more intrigued, less intrigued? Thumbs up or thumbs down on this new cast member of the movie?
I think I'll just go with indifferent, I guess. Like it just doesn't really impact my viewpoint either way. I mean, he's a fine actor, but I don't know. Like I feel like he's not the type. When I think Independence Day, I don't think William Fichtner, but could be good.
You think of Shredder?
Yeah, exactly.
That actually just reading the article made me mad because, and it had absolutely nothing to do with Independence Day 2. It was the fact that the article had to start mentioning Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Yeah, I mean, I like William Fichtner, but I feel like he's like a guy who was in like a lot of movies, so it's like he's like not. It's almost like not news casting in a movie because he's just like one of those, like, he's just that guy in the background that's there, so. Right.
I was just more upset that he was actually going to be reprising the role of Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. God. Anyways, I'm going to give this one, I don't want to copy Dan and just be indifferent. I guess thumbs up, fine, whatever. Add him to the group. Jeff Goldblum, Vivica A. Fox, Bill Pullman, Liam Hemsworth, Charlotte Gainsbourg, William Fichtner. Why not? Thumbs up. Amanda, what do you think?
I'm going to say thumbs up. I really liked Independence Day, so it'll be cool to see what they do with this one. I'm not going to tie it into the first one because I don't want it to wreck the first one for me. I don't really care if Shredder's in it or not. I do care that Liam Hemsworth is in it. We're going to say that. I think the premise of it occurring 20 years after the first Independence Day, not really sure how that's going to go, but I'm interested to find out.
All right. Let's do some more casting here, and this one's right up your alley. Let's talk Harry Potter spin-off casting. We already know that Eddie Redmayne is going to be the main star, hopefully rebounding from his appearance in Jupiter Ascending. And the other names being thrown out here are I can't say her name.
I don't know how to say that either.
Does anybody know?
Some weird Irish name.
Does anybody know how to say her name?
Kathy McPhee. No, it's not the right one. I have no idea.
Dakota Fanning, Kate Upton. Who else do we got? I'm going to just throw a stab at it. Sorcy.
Oh, CRC Ronan, or I forget that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's supposed to say.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, that's probably wrong. Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, I know who she is, but I can never say her name. But so those are different names that have been thrown out there. Like I said, Kate Upton, etc. So let's not focus on the casting. Let's just focus on the idea of this spin-off, The Fantastic Beasts, and where to find them. Does the idea of this spin-off in general make you give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, Amanda? You are a huge Harry Potter fan.
Yes, I'm going to say thumbs up just to see what they're going to do with this. I have read Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and I have no idea how they're going to make it into a movie. But I think it's going to be just about him writing this book, and his adventures is not going to be anything connected to the actual book besides that. And as far as all of the casting and stuff goes, it's just a bunch of rumors besides Eddie Redmayne being locked down, so I'm not going to get too excited over any casting.
Okay. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I really like the Harry Potter world, like the universe that it's in, and I mean, my first worry is like, is this going to be like The Hobbit is to the Lord of the Rings, like it's each step down? But I think the fact that it's separate completely and not going to be like tying into that story is promising. And Eddie Redmayne does seem like I could see him in that world, so I feel like he might be one of the few British actors that wasn't in the Harry Potter movie, so maybe that's the only one they had left. So I'll go thumbs up. And the other casting people seem fine. Kate Upton, isn't she a model? Am I mistaken? Is that someone else? I don't know.
I think you're right.
Saoirse Ronan I think is a quite great actress, so I think she would be cool too. So I mean, it does seem like a cash grab, but I think it could still be good.
All right. I don't know. I'd like to see some more about it. Like I said, I don't really, from what I've heard from Amanda and from other people, it seems like a weird thing to try to tie in and try to make a movie out of. But I'm with you. I like the Harry Potter universe. Obviously, I just rewatched all of them before we went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, so it's all fresh in my mind, and I think it's an interesting world. So I think there's plenty of stuff to still explore there. So I'll give it a thumbs up as well. We got another news story about the Aquaman movie. So we are getting some comic book stuff in here, not just Spider-Man here. And I can't get over how cool I really think the poster is that shows Aquaman, Jason Momoa. I really dig that look. I don't know why, but I know it's not necessarily traditional and a lot of the colors aren't there, but the article that went out this week was about the announcement of a director, and hopefully the owner of this director in the Fantasy Film League is just sleeping and won't nominate this for casting points, but James Wan, director of Furious 7, is now going to be the director for the new Aquaman film. Dan, thumbs up or thumbs down?
I actually like that. I think James Wan he's intriguing director because he's got a horror background, and I thought he did fine with Furious 7. So yeah, I could see it.
I have not seen Furious 7. It's the only one I haven't seen so far. So I can't really speak too much to his work on that, and I haven't seen any of the horror stuff, The Conjuring, etc. So I can't really say too much. I mean, based on what everybody says about him, it seems like it should be a thumbs up, and it seems like it makes sense and should be something that could mean success. But since I haven't really seen anything that he's done, I'm not going to make an ignorant comment on how this makes me feel. But I'm for the Aquaman film in general. So I know everyone makes fun of Aquaman and he's the butt of jokes and everything, but I think this movie is going to kind of throw all those stereotypes on end, because Jason Momoa looks like an intimidating creature there. All right. Next up, I said there was 2 Star Wars stories, and I think this one is super intriguing, super interesting, so let's talk another Star Wars story. This one is about something called Black Angel, the long-lost Star Wars precursor to be made into crowd-funded feature film. So this was a short that was shown alongside of, I believe it was Empire Strikes Back, back in the day. And for a long time it was thought that this was lost to history and that there was no more copies of it, but apparently they discovered a new copy of it back in 2011, I believe was the year, and now it's going to be made into a feature film. I think the interesting part about this is not just the crowdfunding aspect of it, but what you can get for doing that. There's a lot of things that you can get. You can get an invitation to the red carpet premiere. You can be cast as an extra in the Demon King's army. You can have an all-expenses-paid week of work experience with the audio department, or the opportunity to own a piece of film negative from Star Wars A New Hope. So there's definitely a lot of stuff that you could get for helping fund this whole thing. Dan, have you seen the thing that this is based off of, or what do you think about this whole article?
I have not, and I couldn't really tell. Does it exist in the Star Wars universe? Or is it just something completely different?
I think it's something completely different. I think it was just something that kind of ran alongside it.
Okay.
I don't think it has anything to actually do with Star Wars per se.
I just find it interesting that like something that's tied to Star Wars would also be tied to crowdfunding. It just seems, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, It's like with some other stuff, like not seeing what it's based upon. I really have nothing to really say except for I had no idea like a short film was even before Empire Strikes Back, so I'd be interested in seeing that. So, I mean, I guess worst case scenario, it maybe promotes this short film that people like myself weren't aware of. So, I guess thumbs up on that end, but I can't really say about it being a feature film, not knowing really much about it.
Are you going to donate to try to land yourself as an extra in the Demon King's army?
Only if like I can get like the rank, corporal or something. I don't want to just be like a private, because I mean that's not gonna. I need like a rank of some sort. So
I think I would do it if I got a guarantee that I was going to be killed in it somehow. So at least there was like a moment where you would see something. It's not just like, oh, I'm one of those faces out there. Like, nope, that was me. Just got stabbed by somebody. Honestly, I would do it just to own a piece of the film negative from A New Hope, probably. I'm not going to lie. I'm that kind of nerd. But, yeah, I think this is intriguing. I, like you, had no idea that this thing existed. So, if anything, I'm just going to watch it and see what it's all based off of. But a lot of people's giving a lot of praise to this short film, including, I believe, Steven Spielberg, who said it was one of the most enigmatic films he'd ever seen back in 1979 or whenever he saw it. So it didn't do well. I mean, it had a brief run in cinemas, so it's not like a lot of people saw this. And obviously, when it was lost for so long, as far as the negatives and whatnot go, I feel like there's probably a ton of people that haven't seen this. So I don't know, I just think it's an interesting piece of thing, and we'll see how the funding goes and see what it turns into. But if Spielberg liked it and said it's one of the best films he'd ever seen, I guess I'll go along with it and say thumbs up, and let's see what happens with it. So, all right. Going into another bit of directing casting, we've had a few of those. How about Clint Eastwood's next project? I know a lot of... Has it really been 6 years, I guess, is the main question for me on this whole thing, with the Hudson... What did they call him? The Hudson River Hero or something like that? The pilot that was able to land...
Yeah.
Sullinger.
Yeah, Sully. Yeah.
Yeah, Sully. Apparently that was 6 years ago.
Wow.
And things that make you feel old. But that's going to be Clint Eastwood's next project, apparently. Direct and produce a new film about the pilot who successfully landed the doomed plane in the Hudson River 6 years ago. He did well with American Sniper most recently. Can he cash in the same gold mine with the Hudson River Hero? What do you think, Dan? Are you interested or not interested in this?
No. I'd be like interested in a documentary maybe, but I don't know. I mean, maybe the guy might have an amazing life. I really don't know, but it does seem like it's like kind of too late. Not too late, but just seems like, I don't know, a random time for it. But I know American Sniper was a huge hit, and it was fine. But he did Jersey Boys before that, and like he had like as a director, Eastwood tends to be hit or miss for me. So, and this story doesn't seem like it has a huge amount of material. I mean, just as someone who knows nothing about the actual guy, maybe he has like this amazing life. But I'm going to go thumbs down just because I tend to be indifferent with Eastwood as a director, and I'm just kind of tired of his same look that he has for every movie, and I feel like it'd be the same thing here.
I'm going to go with you. I'm complete thumbs down, but I'm not going to deny the fact that this does have the potential to make a bunch of money. This is the exact type of thing that just, the average people that are watching Oprah and stuff like that, the same type of people that just clamor for this type of story would go crazy over, and everybody would want to see it, and they'd be talking about it over coffee or over lunch with all their other friends.
They'll be called American pilots, so.
They'll put American somewhere in there. So, I mean, I'm not going to deny that it probably afterwards about this guy too, and kind of some stuff that he did maybe that made it not seem like he wasn't trying to get something out of it as well. I don't remember exactly the stories, but I thought there was some kind of questionable choices he made afterwards that seemed like he was trying to kind of milk it for some things. But
to be honest with you.
But I honestly wasn't paying that much attention, so I could be completely talking nonsense. But I'll give it a thumbs down as well. Director of a different type of... This is different director news. Instead of talking about someone getting involved, we're talking about someone who is quitting a movie. And we already talked about some other live-action shows that are similar or based on Disney properties. And we had talked about the fact that The Little Mermaid was in the pipeline from Sofia Coppola, but apparently not anymore. She has quit. Apparently there was some not seeing eye to eye when it came to her and the studio or the bigwigs as far as who should play Ariel. And so she has quit the film. So Little Mermaid has no director currently. Dan, thumbs up or thumbs down on Sofia Coppola walking out of The Little Mermaid?
I never understood the pairing to begin with, so I go thumbs up. It didn't really make sense to me because she doesn't seem like someone who would work within that system, and this kind of seems like that is proof of that. So I think it's probably for the best for both people, so I go thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this. I'm going to give a thumbs up as well. I don't necessarily see the match there, and I think someone else might be a better fit. I don't know who or what direction that should go, or if the project should die, or if they should go forward. I'm kind of indifferent on that. I mean, I loved the animated film. It seems like an interesting one that they try to make into a live action, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I don't think Sofia Coppola was the person, so thumbs up on that one. I know this next story will be right up your alley because you are a huge Bond fan, and you are definitely looking forward to Spectre this year. It was on your most anticipated list earlier that we did. So let's talk about the future of James Bond. The article coming out is talking about the fact that Sony, their contract with the rights to the Bond films is actually up after this next film. And there might be a bidding war that commences as far as the studios trying to vie for the rights to make the James Bond films. Is it a good thing or bad thing that the rights will be up for grabs? Do you want Sony to somehow retain those rights with what they've done with Skyfall and the previous films and kind of the direction that that's going, or do you think it's time for a new studio to get their hands on the James Bond universe?
I just want the rights to James Bond to stay intact and together for a little bit of time, because there's been this huge back and forth. The rights to James Bond are just insane, because it's you had the whole thing with them being split, and you had the Never Say Never Again, which was the other people doing a Bond film, and then they couldn't use Blofeld and Spectre for the longest time. It's a huge mess. So I felt it's finally fixed, and now it's they might be losing rights. So I'm going thumbs down, because it's how do you let that expire? Why you as the Sony, how do you not see that and think we should probably renew? This is our biggest franchise. Maybe we should look into renewing this, but I don't know. I think my worry is that Disney will just buy it, because if they have everything else. I just don't want them to add Bond to the list.
Yeah, I mean, I too would like the Bond franchise to find a stable home and not have to jump around, or not to have any type of kind of issues or back and forth. And I don't know if Sony is the most stable company to be with right now, given everything that's been going on with them, and given how they've handled some of the other franchises that they have had their hands on. So maybe it's better for the Bond universe to be controlled by somebody else. But at the same time, the last few Bond movies have been, especially the last one was really good. And if Spectre is anything like that, maybe would be better for Sony to have their hands on it. So I don't know. I mean, Sony is an interesting thing right now with everything that is going on. I'm not just talking about the hacks and that type of stuff, but with everything that happened with the Amazing Spider-Man, and it seems like they're just kind of grasping at straws right now. We've had the different talks about Ghostbusters and 21 Jump Street Men in Black crossovers and all that type of stuff. Maybe the Stephen King's The Dark Tower series will help it out. There's some other comic adaptations from Valiant that they're trying to do. But they definitely need the Bond franchise. But I don't necessarily have an opinion on where it would be better to be. You know what I mean? I don't know. Skyfall was good, so I'm fine with it doing exactly what it's doing right now. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have a big opinion, but it will be kind of interesting to see what happens, because that franchise is obviously worth some money, and it's also got a long history. Probably a longer history than most movie franchises out there. I don't know if is there any other movie franchise that has had more films than the Bond films?
I don't know off the top of my head. There probably is some, like, probably is, but I can't really think of anything.
It's some franchise, but they've all been, like, released straight to
yeah,
DVD.
I mean, you have, like, all those serial, like, the 50s and, like, that time period has so many, like, and especially if you consider some foreign films, there are some...
Right.
But I think, like, notable, like, studio franchises, I think by far it's the one, at least, most longevity when it comes to, like, being in the forefront of pop culture. So.
Yeah. All right, anything else news-wise that you wanted to come up with? You want to talk about Sister Act 3 or whatever they're doing? Or?
I swear to God, hope that's not a thing.
There is an article somewhere out there. I did not include it in the notes here, but it's because it hit too late. It hit just today, and I decided not to try to include that as a last-minute addition.
Oh, man, that's just... Yeah, I'm going to go thumbs down on that big time, and now that's all I got. So, man.
All right. Well, let's get to some trailers then. We were talking about this off-air before the record, and usually every week we have, 8 to 15 trailers, and 90% of them are garbage or not that interesting or something that we don't have, that strong of an opinion about. This is not one of those weeks. There seems to be a whole bunch of interesting trailers that came out this week, whether it was the first trailer, a second trailer, or a teaser trailer, or whatever. So a lot of stuff to talk about. Dan, we'll let you go first. What is one trailer that you saw this week that caught your eye in either a negative or a positive way?
I'll go with a positive way to start with, and hopefully this movie wins all the Oscars, so it can help me with the fantasy league, and that's the trailer for Macbeth with Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard. I'll admit, like, I don't like a lot of Shakespeare movies. Like, there are movies that are based off of Shakespeare material. I think they're hit and miss, but this one looks really intriguing. It looks really really down and dirty, like gritty, which is kind of a an overused word, but it does seem to fit this. But I'm super intrigued, and I feel like it's considering the pedigree and the source material, and it looks good. I'm highly interested. It's not at all what I would expect, but I think that's a good thing. So
I'm going to go with you on this one too, and I'm glad you brought that one up because then I can talk about another movie too. But I'm with you. I don't mind Michael Fassbender winning some awards or doing whatever for a variety of movies he's been in. It's not going to hurt me too much. Anybody that can get some points to try to compete with the blockbuster guys, I'm fine with. But I am someone... I know you said that the Shakespeare films are hit or miss, and I will agree with that, but I'm someone that will watch all of them regardless. Like, even though they are hit or miss, I will watch every one of them just to see how good or how terrible it is. I'm a huge Shakespeare fan as far as the actual writing and the plays. And so I'm always just more intrigued to see how they're going to adapt it or what style they're going to do. So I'm definitely intrigued by this one. Michael Fassbender and the rest of the cast definitely seems like some perfect casting as far as these roles, and it looks like an interesting take. I think you use the word gritty, and whether it's overused or not, I think it's the right word to use for this one. And it just, to me, is something that could be surprisingly good, I think, for a lot of people. So I think it was kind of under the radar at the beginning of the year. Not a lot of people were talking about it as, like most anticipated or anything like that. But I think it could surprise some people as to how good it possibly could be. So I am with you. I think that's a yay for me as well. One that caught my eye, again, in a positive way, I'm going to be talking mostly positive today, guys, is the trailer for film A Walk in the Woods. This one's Robert Redford, and I didn't realize Nick Nolte was in this, but when that was who he was searching out in the trailer, I was like, you got to be kidding me. So the idea of Robert Redford and Nick Nolte on a trek through the woods, I mean, come on. Do I need to say anything more? That seems intriguing enough for me. And there's a bunch of other supporting cast along the way. I mean, you even have Kristen Schaal show up from, I know her most from Flight of the Conchords. I know she's been in more stuff recently that people would know her from, but I think she's hilarious. She shows up. There's just a lot of people that are in this film that seem like it would make it a pretty good ensemble cast, but even if you take all that away and just give me Robert Redford and Nick Nolte doing stuff, as they make this trek through the, what is it, the Appalachians?
Yeah, Appalachian Trail.
I'm for this one. I'm ready for it. What about you?
I was with it until like the last, I don't know, 45 seconds, minute, when the musical montage. I don't know, the song choice kind of turned my it was like I was up to it with it until then. I don't know, like Robert Redford and Nick Nolte do seem intriguing together. Though Robert Redford lately, I mean, no, he just did All Is Lost. That was quite good, but I don't know. That was my only issue. Was like the end. It just like it had like that, like, you know, TV movie a little bit too,
possibly. Yeah,
a little bit too that. But that also just could be the trailer too. So that's
right.
That's
hopefully,
yeah.
All right, back to you then. Let's talk about another one each. What else do you got?
Wow, there's so many to choose from. We're going to go with this one because I think the other one I might want to talk about you might bring up. So I'm going to go with, it's actually a documentary trailer, which don't really talk about much, but I actually saw this on Reddit and it looked quite good. And it's produced by Catherine Bigelow, who directed Zero Dark 30 and Hurt Locker, and it's called The Cartel Land, which is this documentary that kind of going over the cartels and Mexico and the border of the United States. And the documentary itself is quite intriguing, and I'm really interested in it because of looking at this. It seems like they had some like intense footage and had some incredible access to like what was going on in these towns and stuff like that. So it looks rather like, you know, intense is the word that I feel like I'm using over. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It looks quite good, and I tend to trust Catherine Bigelow's judgment with things. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's kind of, I knew nothing about it and saw the trailer, and now it's like one of my most anticipated movies. I'm looking forward to it right now.
I think it's a great topic for that type of thing too. I think documentaries on whether it be cartels or gangsters or anything kind of like behind the scenes of those types of things, or that delves into those things a little bit more, is intriguing to me. I just think it's something that's rich with interesting stories that, you know, us everyday folk don't necessarily run into on a daily basis.
And I like that it's like not a talking heads. It looks like it's really just getting the people that are there, and it's like a lot of that, like not it's just trying to tell this story of these people that are there, which I think will lend itself to be quite good. So it's quite intriguing.
All right, so we're all positive so far. Now I feel like I have a pressure though, because you were hoping that I was going to talk about one specifically, and I honestly have about 3 that I want to talk about. So let's see. The one I will go with, and we can talk about some of the other ones if we need to as well, but I think 99 Homes seemed interesting to me. Maybe I'm alone on that one, but this is the Andrew Garfield one with Michael Shannon. And I knew absolutely nothing about this before I clicked on the trailer. Like, I've never seen this talked about this year. I've never seen any information about it. I didn't even know that Andrew Garfield, Michael Shannon, and company were doing this film. And it seems like a weird combination. Like, if I said Andrew Garfield and Michael Shannon, you're probably thinking it's like some type of superhero film where, you know, Garfield's Spider-Man and Michael Shannon's some type of Zod or some type of villain or something like that. But this is obviously completely different. The premise seems to be that Andrew Garfield's home is foreclosed on. Michael Shannon plays the part of either the company or the bank or whoever's taking the home from him, and then offers him a job, and then he starts working for the same business and informing other people that their homes are foreclosed on, and it seems somewhat dramatic. I'm probably way off on this. It's probably going to be a piece of garbage, but they're talking. The trailer seemed like it had everything I was looking for in that type of film. It seemed like it was a character study in a way that you're going to see Andrew Garfield play somebody, and maybe it'll be a test for him and see if he can pull this off, but someone who is kind of on that line, like he's walking that line where he's trying to do what's best for his family. He's trying to put food on the table and support his wife and his child, but at what cost? And, you know, what's acceptable way to make that money to do that? So it seems like it's going to raise some interesting questions and maybe open up for some discussion or some debate on some of those choices. So I guess I was intrigued by that. I'm guessing this is not the one you were hoping I picked.
No, it was a different one. But this one I'm kind of interested in. The trailer didn't grab me a great deal, but it's from the director of Chop Shop, which is a movie I really, really liked. That's like a really small indie film from like the early, like late aughts that I like a lot. I think it's even streaming on Netflix, and I like the actors as well. So, but the one I was thinking about was Suffragette or Suffragette. Yeah, I don't know. Which, Meryl Streep again from the Fantasy League. So she's doing like a historical period piece taking place in England that has to win an Oscar or at least be nominated for that.
I think she already won it.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I think it looks pretty good. I mean, again, another song choice I was a little bit. I just think it's a little odd when you have like especially when you have like
period piece from back.
Yeah, like a modern day song with something that's so much of a classical time period. That's a little bit questionable to me. But again, it's a trailer. But I
guess it worked in Selma.
Yeah, true. It's true. It's not impossible for it not to work, but I guess too. But that was a song made just for the movie, where this is taking another one, so it's a little different. But I don't know. It looks good. I think it could be. I feel like it's like this and Macbeth are two films I feel like will. It seems just based upon pedigree will be like in the Oscar talk, but obviously they haven't come out yet.
There's no way this film doesn't at least get one nomination for something.
Yeah, at least even just for like art direction or costume of them. Sure,
right. It'll have something. I mean, this looks like it. I was going to talk about this one. I figured we'd find a way to talk about it anyways. But yeah, from the historical side of things, I find it's definitely interesting. I can't believe this story really hasn't been told to this extent. I don't think. I mean, has there been a lot of movies about this event in U.S. history?
I don't think so. But this is England, right? So it's not U.S. history.
Oh, is that? I'm looking at the trailer like an idiot. Then I was thinking it was all about the U.S. Women right to vote and the suffragettes that were fighting in early American
history. I think
history.
It's happening around the same time, so I don't know if it's connected. But
it's set in England?
I believe so, because I think Brendan Gleeson's one of the police officers.
Right, that's right. And that's what happens when you watch 12 trailers in a row.
Hey, it makes sense.
But no, yes, I'm glad you brought Brendan Gleeson up, because it seemed like there was definitely some interesting kind of relationships between him and obviously the suffragettes, plural. But yeah, this seems like it has a lot going for it. I don't see how this is going to be too terrible. I mean, I don't, there's always films that get hyped up like this and that seem, I hate to use the phrase, but like Oscar baity.
Definitely.
But sometimes they do fall flat and sometimes they don't come away with many awards, but this one seems like it has a whole lot going for them, and there's a lot of pedigree, like you're saying, involved. So I'm definitely intrigued in this one. I was not beforehand, like just based on the title and kind of the description. I thought there's no way they're going to make this that interesting or that appealing to me, but based on the trailer, I'm actually on board now. So any other trailers that you just want to bring up quickly that caught your eye that you think are deserving of a watch or increase your interest in a film?
The Good Dinosaur, that intrigued me. I mean, there was not much there. It's literally just a teaser, but Pixar doing a dinosaur story, I'm all for. So,
right. What were your thoughts on Cop Car?
I did not see that one.
Okay, that one is interesting. It basically has two young boys. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be like a coming-of-age story, but it's two young boys who come across a cop car that is seemingly abandoned, and the keys are in it. So, like any 8 or 9 year old kids would do, if you come across a police car and there's nobody around and it's in a field and you find the keys, you're going to start driving it and turning the sirens on and acting like you're police officers.
Yeah.
So they do that, and then basically the character played by, I believe, is Kevin Bacon, if I'm getting my trailers not mixed up.
Probably.
Here.
You could just say that. You have a good chance of being right.
Kevin Bacon is starting to talk to them like on the radio and telling them that he wants his car back, and have you looked in the trunk, and this, that, and the other. And it seems like the trailer takes a turn at that point where it is becoming more of almost like a psychological thriller or something where he's trying to hunt down this car and these kids for whatever reason. He seems like he's not a very nice person. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting, but it just seems like with the title Cop Car that, I don't know, there's something that doesn't bode well for me with that.
It does seem kind of strange. Paper Town, I can't, there's some things about it, that looks intriguing, and I get kind of like a perks of being a wallflower flower feel, and then other times I'm like, I don't know, it seems a little bit much, but so I'm That one I'm intrigued by. I'm a little worried. And please no for Joe Dirt 2. Like, I don't... No, we don't. The world does not need Joe Dirt 2.
That is one I am 100% in agreement with you. That is probably something that I would not watch if you paid me. I don't even know if I've seen the first one. I've seen a little segment of the first one, and I think that was in passing, and I decided that that's not something I needed to continue to do. So I'm sure there's Joe Dirt fans out there. I'm sure if Amanda was here right now, she would be champion the Joe Dirt 2. But luckily she's on a call at the moment for work, so we don't get to hear her praise Joe Dirt 2. I'm just kidding, Amanda. All right, I'm in the doghouse now. Damn it.
the beauty of podcast editing, it can all go away.
It can all go away. She'll never know. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we are going to be back with our main discussion. We've kind of switched the order. I didn't talk about that in the beginning. Usually by now, we'll talk about like what we've been watching right now, but we're going to actually save that until a little bit closer to the end. That way we can have a little bit more freedom in either talking more or less about some of those films as time permits. But before that, we're going to have a main discussion on a couple different things. First one is going to be in relation to some feedback that we got in the comments on the website about our ratings and kind of what goes into how we rate films and what each number kind of means to us. And then something else I kind of wanted to talk about is the idea of originality in Hollywood. So we're kind of having a discussion segment this week. Each week you can look for something special coming up here in the main attraction, kind of shifting gears. Sometimes we will be talking about a new movie that's in theaters currently, if it's a big release or something like that. But we're also going to spend this time to do some of the stuff we've done in the past, whether it be actor spotlights, maybe like a top 5, top 10 list, or just some general discussion. So we're going to start it this week with some general discussion. So we hope you'll stick with us, and we'll be right back after the break.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing.
Car.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
Hi, this is Greg. This is Chuck.
And this is Dan. And we are Talking in Circles.
Because the world needs another podcast, we are here as Geekcast Radio's newest edition. And as the title says, each week we get lost in conversation about a wide range of topics, including movies, comics, games, art, TV, and even occasionally sports.
We play games and discuss pivotal topics like who would win in a fight, the Kool-Aid Man or Tony the Tiger, and examine the hot-button issues of the world of geekdom.
We keep things fresh by taking timeless topics in new directions. We are simply three friends having a fun time talking about life's most fascinating foibles.
Stay connected with us every Tuesday on iTunes or at geekcastradio.com. All right, and welcome back. And as Kevin mentioned up top, we are kind of going to do some different things with the main attraction. Unfortunately for me, getting out to films is becoming a little bit more difficult. But we still want to talk about movies, and I think in a lot of ways, a lot of people do movie reviews, but maybe we can look at something different. So I think this ends up being kind of a cool opportunity. And this actually spurs from some comments we got on the last episode regarding how we rate movies, what our rating means. Apparently, the rating of Raiders of the Lost Ark sparked a lot of controversy. It did. So the question becomes, like, what does it mean? Like, what does a rating mean? Because I think it's easy to say, like, something's an 8, but what does that necessarily mean? There could be some things more into that, so we can kind of get into, like, how we go about it. Because I think there are different methods and stuff like that. So it should be interesting.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different methods just amongst movie podcasters too. You see a lot of different scoring systems, a lot of different ratings, whether it be like 5 stars, whether it be 1 through 10, whether it be a letter grade. But I still think it serves a purpose in us kind of defining how our ratings, like what it means to us personally, so that people can kind of understand where we're coming from and what each number means, since we've been scoring things on a 10 scale. So But go ahead with what you're saying. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh yeah, that's sure. I mean, and the question is even beyond just like what each number means, like how. I think someone mentioned, do you rate, like, do you differentiate when you do your rating? Does like a 8 for one movie mean the same thing for another one? So, I guess that's kind of some way to start. So we can start with something like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I think the question that was, I don't remember it exactly, but
the question was, I had made a comment because I'd given it an 8.5, and you had said something in the podcast about, you know, you thought that was probably a little bit lower than you would say, or, you know, too low, because I was giving Amanda a hard time for rating it even lower, and I said, well, I got to leave some room out there just in case on rewatch I like one of the other Indiana Jones films better, which obviously sparked the discussion of why would any other film have anything to do with how I rated Raiders of the Lost Ark. No, kind of I was just saying that, not necessarily tongue-in-cheek, but just kind of like making up an excuse on the fly for why I didn't rate it as high as you think I should. So I wasn't necessarily leaving room, but I think in the back of your head, you know, maybe subconsciously when you're watching, you know, like let's say like when I was doing the Harry Potter series, you know, I got, 7 films to watch. It'd be very hard for me if I had never seen them to see the first one and automatically give it a 10 out of 10. Even if later on in retrospect I did that, I think it's different. I think when I'm rating a movie in a series, or if I'm doing like a series spotlight or a look through like a franchise or something like that, the scores that I'm giving then might differentiate from what I would give the movie overall in the grand scheme of things, if that makes sense.
I guess so. You're almost. You're kind of.
It's almost like a grade within the spotlight of what I'm doing, if that makes sense. Like, okay, I'm going to watch all 7 Harry Potter films, and I'm rating them for people as I go through them. There has to be. I have to leave room in my opinion. I have to leave room for one of them to be better than the other one, instead of just give them all 10s.
But what if, like, say, for example, you watch Empire Strikes Back? Mm-hmm. Would you then, and say it's the first Star Wars movie you ever watch, and it's like, well, I can't give that a 10, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give it a 9 because I want to see the other ones first.
It's a terrible explanation and logic for why I would do that. But I'm saying if I'm only rating it amongst if I'm just doing it for a series, if I'm saying I'm gonna do it now, I'm gonna rate it a 9.5, just to leave a chance that there might be something better within the series. But if I'm rating that like overall for like, let's say my general, you and I are both list geeks. We're not just Cinema Geeks, but we're list and database geeks as well.
Very much so.
So if I'm rating, you know, I have a rating for all my movies overall, and it might differentiate from what I was doing just within that thing. I know that's terrible, and that makes no sense to probably anybody out there. But it's just a way for me to compartmentalize what I was doing with just that franchise and within that franchise, and then kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, now if I'm just generally looking at that movie in an overall terms, where does it fall? Okay. And I'm saying, like, the purpose that I'm using for, like, a series is not necessarily something that I would say is good. That's not necessarily something that I would say is, like, the best way to do things. It's just my own way of trying to keep track of which movies I like better within that franchise. And I know, you know, if a movie is a 10, it should be a 10, and if there's another 10, it should be another 10. I get that, and that's how I would judge it in an overall sense. But I still want to, like, let's say you took, like, every movie that you've ever rated a 10. All right, let's say you had, like, your universal rating system was out of 10. I know it's not for you and me, but let's say everything, like, let's say you've seen 2,000 movies over the time of your life, and you've rated 15 of them 10 out of 10. If you were looking at those 15 movies and trying to decide or decipher what was the ranking within those 10, instead of just having them all perfect scores, if you were trying to kind of differentiate and say, let's rank those 10, 1 through 10, you're technically going to do what I'm talking about in a kind of a reverse fashion. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and I guess I would also say to that, though, kind of within that lines, because I think, for me, when I do a rating, I guess I don't think comparatively, right, like, outside of whatever it is I'm rating. Because, like, for example, like I don't like 110 for one movie may not be the same thing for another 10. So it is kind of what you're saying. For example, like thinking of something like The Avengers. It's a movie I really like. You know, it's great. It's a lot of fun. So when I'm rating it based upon what it is, like what's it trying to accomplish. So I might rate it like a 9. Like Avengers is a 9. Does that mean it is like Oscar worthy, or like compared to something like I'll talk about it later today, which is Elephant Man, which I would also rate a 9. Filmmaking standpoint, vastly different. And if the same score, but clearly the score is different. I think it like a 4-star horror film is not the same thing as a 4-star like serious drama. So for me, the rating, the score itself, kind of like what you're saying, it's not something that you can necessarily take and compare from one movie to the next. It's more of an indication of how well that movie is at, how successful that film is at accomplishing what it sets out to accomplish.
Right, and I think there is a lot to say about doing that and that way of ranking movies. Like, you should be ranking it based on what it's trying to do and what it's trying to accomplish. Like, you can't compare, like you were just saying, you can't compare a horror film to a dramatic biopic, or something like that. Like, you can't compare Schindler's List to Avengers.
That we do it every year when we do our top 10. So
we do it, and that's kind of, I don't know. So that was kind of my logic. I'm saying I'm admitted that it's flawed logic when I was looking at like within a franchise, but it's just kind of like the way I do it, kind of outside of my actual ratings, to just kind of say, okay, if I'm just judging these 3 films that are similar, or these 7 films that are similar, or these, in the Marvel, like these 11 or 12 films that are similar, if I'm just rating those amongst each other, what are the different grades or what are the different levels between those? It's just kind of my way of keeping those straight as far as films that are similar in what they're trying to do, and kind of how I rate them in between each other. And then after I've done that, then I can start looking at the bigger picture as far as where they would rank on like an overall rating. So
to expand it outside of movies that are similar, do you, when you're rating a movie, like, are you hesitant to give it like a 9.5 when it's, like, say you watch a movie in January? This rarely ever happens, but it's like, wow, that was a great film. I really loved it. But are you hesitant to give it something like a 9 and a 9.5 or 10, knowing that would probably mean it would perhaps qualify for your top 10, knowing you have 12 more months to go through? I don't feel like I do that. I don't feel like that's the same type of situation, because if I, let's say last year I see Grand Budapest is a good example. Grand Budapest came out early in the year. I had no problem rating that one high and not necessarily worrying about if there's going to be something better. Like, I don't remember what I rated it off the top of my head, but let's say I gave Grand Budapest 8.5 or 9 or something like that. There's not a lot of room for something to beat that, but there is the potential for something to be on that level or above in like an overall. Because when I'm rating a film like that, I'm just rating it in an overall sense, like what you were talking about, what it's trying to do, how successful it was, what was the entertainment value, what was the, was there plot error holes, or was there acting, was it suffered all from some of the acting or direction choices, stuff like that. I'm not rating it like compared to, like, let's say I did a whole Wes Anderson series and I was rating all of those films. My ratings might be different within that series, and which is, like I said, I'm not saying that this is the right way to do things. It's just how my OCD brain has to do it. But no, if I'm seeing a film in February that I think is a 9, I'm going to give it a 9, and it has a good chance of being in the top 10 unless there's a bunch of 10s. So kind of because we talked about being list persons. So would you ever rate a movie higher on your top 10 list per se, even though the score you gave it, like your number 2 for that year is actually a 9.5 when your number 3
is a 10.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, basically where or is it, would you ever do that? Well,
I think the only thing that would cause that is, let's say it's a film I see in April or something like that, and I give it an 8.0. I give it an 8 out of 10. there is that potential that sometimes a film could either increase over time or decrease, or even on a rewatch, where something can go up or down. So I mean, there is always that chance that you give something an 8 on the first viewing when we're reviewing it a week after we see it, and then come December, January, when you're doing a top 10 list, it's either increased or decreased from that time. So I mean, I think there is a chance for your ratings to evolve.
Yeah.
Like I said, whether it's a rewatch or whether it's just something that you start thinking over and over and over again, like you can't get it out of your head. That maybe it didn't raise the same questions that you had originally, but in the weeks and the months ahead, you keep thinking about it, then obviously the rating's going to go up. So I mean, I think there is that potential, but outside of that, no, I don't think I would adjust the top 10 list and put something I rated higher.
Because I will fully admit I have done that. Because there are times where I feel like a movie is a 9 or whatever. Like I prefer like the 5-point scale, but like the 10-point, they're pretty 5 and 10. They're kind of go together. Sometimes like the recommend or not recommend is maybe the easiest, because at the end of the day that's what you're doing. But there are times where like a movie might be an 8, probably like a 9, but it's a 9 for what it is. It's not necessarily I might like other movies rate a movie an 8, but this is almost like the opposite of what you were saying, but I rated an 8, but it's like what it accomplishes is the only reason that it's not a 9 is because it's of where it is and the type of movie it is. Like, I guess I would say, like, thinking of something like Ghost Protocol. Like, that's to me, like, it's a great action film. It's, it fits within that genre really well. But if you're, something like, we'll get to later, we talk about it, like, I think it came out the same year. No, it did not. I'm trying to think of something else that came out that same year. Drive came out that same year. And maybe I would give it the same score, or give Drive maybe even lesser score, which I wouldn't, but but giving it like an equal or like lesser score, just because like I think for this type of film, it's it's not like there are things that it doesn't accomplish completely or so. But I think more so the reason why that would happen is, like you said, it's like your initial thoughts, okay, it's this. But then after thinking and rewatching it, because there are movies that happens to, like, because I tend to rework my top 10s like after every year. Like I go back and redo them and see them, and they change drastically. Movies that weren't on it are on it. Like looking back at it now, like Nightcrawler to me, it's like I rewatched it like a few weeks ago, and that to me maybe even bumped higher than I did, and Whiplash the same way. So I do think rewatching can have that, or just distance, because your rating is very much the initial response, and sometimes it's hard to really rate that,
especially in the podcasting world, when a lot of people are doing it like either the day they saw the movie or the weekend, right after they saw it or something like that. It's very fresh in their minds. It's like you said, it's an initial reaction, and sometimes as you're thinking about stuff, you'll come up with stuff like, well, that didn't make sense, or why did they do that, or vice versa. You're still questioning character decisions or something like, or all the different possibilities for what that ending could mean or something like that could kind of build on. But overall, like if we're doing a 10 scale and we're rating things out of 10, for you, is it just simple math? Is anything 5 or above something you're rating positively?
Yeah, I think that the way I kind of look at it, because just thinking in a 5-point scale, which is, I know this is probably getting confusing, but it is, to me, it's simple math where 5 and below is failing, 6 and above is successful. Something like to me be like 10 is a masterpiece, considering it's legitimately either the best of like the decade, or it's 10s to me should be rare. It should be a special occasion. I used to not always be that way. I used to give out perfect scores way too often, but I think I realized like how it's important to kind of differentiate. Like a 9.5 to me would be something that is like best within the given year, one of the best of the year. Like it's a movie that's probably going to be my top 10. 9 is super successful, has a possibility, like it does a lot of great things. It just maybe has a few things. And like 8 to me, like I think like 8 to me is like a really good movie. It's not like amazing, but it's really, really solid, really good. Highly recommend it. like 6 is just average, 7 is like above average, and so on. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
I think I'm very similar, and as far as just looking at the top half, like I don't even remember the last time I would have given a 10 out. Those should be more few and far between. If you have one of those a year or two at the very most, maybe. But like you said, sometimes it's more of a best of the decade type thing. Yeah. 10s are very hard to come by, but 9.5 is like the best of the best almost.
Yeah, I do know the last movie I gave a perfect score, and I don't want to say it because I think it will ruin my top of the decade list if I say it. But I think you probably know what it is. So
we'll hold that. I think I know the last time I gave it 10 as well, and I'll save that thought as well. But, and like you said, 8 is a real good movie, 8.5, something that I really liked, but maybe just had a few minor flaws that kind of holds it back. 6 or 7 are just stuff that I think is worth recommending. It's stuff that I didn't hate. So it's kind of just, a positive review, like you said. And then if you're in the 5 range, it's just kind of one of those that didn't go either way for you. It just kind of was there. It was a movie you saw. You didn't hate it. You didn't like it. And I think I think when you get down to the lower numbers, I don't know if we're quite as detailed in what each number necessarily means.
I would say like looking at it, 5, like you said, it's indifferent. It's like take it or leave it. 4 is not recommend. It is unsuccessful. It's not awful. It's not something that is completely awful. It's just it's not good. It's 3 would be, I guess like 1 to me would be something that is just like worst of the year, kind of the opposite of 10.
The difference between some of those numbers for me is the difference between there was just flaws in the movie, like there was a bunch of things wrong with the movie that makes it so I can't recommend it or that I don't like it, compared to a movie that literally makes me angry.
Yeah.
Because there's some films that just make me mad that the decisions are so bad. Like, take Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from last year. That's not just a bad movie. That's a movie that made me mad because of how stupid some of these decisions are.
Yeah.
So that's going to get something. That's going to get a 2 or a 1 or something compared to like a 4.
Yeah. Like
for me.
Yeah, exactly. I think 4 is just obviously bad, but it's not like it is not going to make you like want it. Like one of your favorite phrases, punch a baby, right? Is that the?
Why is that one of my favorites?
I just remember you.
Why do I use it so often?
Yeah, exactly. Which is maybe not something you want to be known for.
No.
Punch a baby, Kevin Optimus Solo.
Especially now that you have a baby, I don't want to say that on the podcast.
I don't want to say that too loud because that would not go over well. But yeah, so I do think like when it gets to the bottom, it's a little bit trickier, which is usually why like I the 5-point scale is a little cleaner, but I do think having more options is a good thing because it's tough because there are those movies where it's like, you end up giving everything like a 3.5, I feel like, on Letterboxd. Because it's like, it's not average, but it's not good, great, so it's a 3. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to trash on this, but I don't want to say it's the best film ever. Yeah. It's a 3.5.
I guess maybe last question, but do you think overall ratings are, this sounds stupid, but ratings are overrated where like they're made a bigger deal than they should be, or do you think they're important in reviewing a film?
I think they're important from a certain aspect because I have read reviews on movies that don't give an actual score, don't give a rating, don't give a grade, and sometimes those people are not the most clear on where they land on a movie. And I think you do need to know more than just, like, obviously it should just be about the discussion and you should be able to get enough out of what they're saying is good and what they're saying bad. But I think it helps me to kind of place everything in my understanding if I also have a score going along with that or some type of pass, fail, recommend, don't recommend, yay, nay, something. Because sometimes it can be a film that's, polarizing or a film that's controversial or a film that has a lot of different things that you could discuss and you could feel good or bad about different aspects of the film. But I think if you don't have an actual rating or something to tell you that this is where I fall on this, and I think this is the best film ever, I think this is a good film, I think this is a bad film, I think this is trash, I think that review becomes kind of ambiguous and hard to read sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's very clear that they either like it or dislike it, but I've read a bunch that don't have a grade, and I'm left at the end saying, well, how did they feel about this overall? Like, besides just breaking down the little parts, overall as a film, how did they feel about it? And I think that's where the rating comes in. Like, you can have your review and you can talk about, the acting was good or the acting was bad or the cinematography was good or bad, and you can go into, like, paragraphs or an essay on that type of stuff. But at the end, I want to know, overall, when you put all those pieces together, how did the film do for you?
Yeah, I think that's important, especially for a written review. I think, or let me rephrase that. I think typically, I think a written review, you should be able to, like a good written review, tell someone's overall opinion based upon what they wrote. But I think when it comes to like a podcast review, since it's discussion based, and sometimes the most interesting things to discuss about a movie would be what it doesn't do well. Even if it's a successful film, just because what it does well is just kind of your typical norm. So you may sound harsher on a movie than you really think you are, and then like it kind of puts it in perspective. Because I think, like the conversation may go just a certain direction, so you may actually seem like you hate a movie more than you do, or like a movie more than you do. So I do think it's important in that aspect, so it gives a clearer idea, since it can get kind of convoluted at times. But I will say, and it is overrated in the sense where I think people like that's like the only thing people go to, which is it's like, oh, you gave it this and it should be this. I'm like, it gets to the point where it's like you're just like grasping at straws, or really just kind of, you gave it a 7.5 when it should be an 8. It's like, well, it's half a star. Like, it's like let's not make a big deal about it. I think that's where it gets a little bit unnecessarily like scrutinized. But I do think it plays a role, and I think people do want to see it. People, if like you said, if it's not there, sometimes you can you'd be like, well, what do they really think? So
right, and like I said, I think it gives more of the overall picture. Whereas you can kind of go in depth about things you like and dislike about each aspect of the film. But for me, the score is kind of giving me an idea of overall if it all works or if it all doesn't when you put it all in one package. Yeah. The other thing I don't like when people do with scores or ratings is when they say, like they'll name an actor or they'll name a scene and be like, well, that gives it a point, or I have to take a point off for that. Like, maybe that's just not how my brain works, but I can't do that. Like, oh, Megan Fox was in this film, so I have to take 2 points off. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, I know people do that in jest, but if it's
hopefully it's mostly jest.
If it's like, no, it had like this person in it, so nope. And they're like, I used this song and I hate this song, so now I can't give it this. Yeah,
I have to give it a 9 because it had one song in it.
Or like. A lot of people like this movie, so I'm gonna give it this score because that or that.
I gotta ask though, one other thing kind of based on this that I've heard a lot, and I even quoted it on Twitter once when Barry from True Bromance said this quote, and I'm going to get the quote wrong, but I want to ask you about, we were talking about judging a film based on what it's trying to do, and you're judging Avengers based on what it's trying to do as a summer blockbuster, as an action film, as a superhero comic book film, etc. And what kind of beats it's going for. But sometimes that same argument then is used for things like Sharknado or whatever it might be, and then people are saying, well, that's a great movie because it didn't take itself serious, or it knew what it was doing, and it knew, its intentions were to do that. And what Barry was saying was, I'm going to get the quote completely wrong, but something about like, you can't give me a bowl of cereal and say, this is the best bowl of cereal ever. It's still cereal. It's still not, you know what I mean? It's still not necessarily a great breakfast, like a gourmet breakfast, just because it's cereal and you're saying you did a good job giving me cereal. And I butchered what he said completely, but hopefully it gets the same point across. So,
if you're like, do you get points just because your ambition is not very high, basically?
Right. If your ambition's not to do anything and you don't do anything well, like, I think, is that enough to rate a movie high just because, hey, we're basing it on what it's intending and what its mission is?
I think there is like a defining line in certain instances where it's like, I think you can be judgmental over what it's trying to do per se. I think that is part of the discussion. I think that, like, maybe, it's something like Sharknado 2, and maybe I would argue Sharknado is not actually successful at what it's trying to do, which is, so I think,
I've never seen it, so I can't speak for that.
I would say, like, yes, I understand, like, like, you can't just because a movie's like, I'm just trying to be a piece of crap, and I'm a piece of crap, so that's okay. But I do think it is important, my response to that would be it's also like going to McDonald's and complaining that it's not a 5-star meal, and like that's what you know what I mean? Like it's right. I think it's important to understand the context of the movie, and I think Sharknado's like is a good example because it's like that's trying to be one of those awful piece of garbage, like the corny purposely, but I think what like the issue with a movie like that is that it's trying to. I have an issue with what it's. I think its ambition is false in that sense, where it's trying to take advantage of like that where it's not really it's trying to be like, oh, we're a joke, but also be serious at the same time. Or like so I think you can argue just the foundation in which a movie is made. So, but I do think it does get to the point where in certain instances it can just be a matter of taste, like the Fast and Furious movies. Like I don't necessarily think. They're a good example because I think there is a certain thing they're going for, and right. I think I think they're good at what they are trying to do in that sense. But I think it's also okay to say, well, I don't think what they are trying to do is adequate enough for a movie, like, or it's not. I think that's fine. I think that could be part. I think, but that's the purpose of the review. Then explaining that, it's this, but what it's trying to be isn't very interesting. So,
right, and it makes me think of one more thing. I know I said that was going to be my last thing, and I'm dragging this on a little bit. But the other thing it makes me think of is when people use the term, and it kind of goes back into ratings, and if you're rating it for what it's trying to do and whatnot, is when people say that something is dated, or when they say that it doesn't hold up. Doesn't that also play into the fact that maybe the movie wasn't trying to hold up 10 years later? Maybe the film was trying to speak to the audience of that time period, and maybe it was tailored towards a certain demographic and had a goal at that time. So is it fair for us then to judge it 10 or 15 years later and say things like it doesn't hold up or it doesn't stand the test of time?
I guess it depends on why it doesn't hold up. Is it not holding up because they were lazy and then just made generic pop culture reference jokes that like were cheap and easy wins that weren't really creative? So is that why it doesn't hold up? Because it was a movie. I think the thing that comes to my mind is a movie I like, but in Chronicle, there's like a thing mentioned, like they mentioned like Tebow time, because it was like long after that happened, which now in retrospect means absolutely, it's like,
right.
It's probably going to mean nothing. So I think which it was clearly added because it had, like that movie came out like a month after that. It was clearly added post film, so it was
right.
So that could cause a movie not to hold up. The thing that's just like really minute example, but I do think if there are elements in which you're trying to take advantage or go for cheap wins, and another thing that comes to mind is like the Shrek films. Like it's just pop culture references. They have like classic ones, but a lot of ones of the time. So
I was thinking more along the lines of like a film that is geared towards like maybe a younger audience, or a film that's geared towards kids, and that. As a grown-up, then you're saying, oh, well, it doesn't hold up and it doesn't appeal to me as an adult. Well, that movie was never intended to appeal to you as an adult, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I have a specific example, but I've heard people say that before, like, oh, I love this as a kid, and then I saw this, last week, and it just wasn't very good. It didn't hold up. And to me, that's a weird thing to say for certain films. Like, I'm not saying, like, okay, somebody sees, this is a terrible example, but since we just talked about Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's a film from back, when we were kids, and for someone to see it now, obviously they'd be stupid if they said it doesn't hold up. But if they said, a caliber of that type of film where they're like, oh, that I saw it as a kid and I loved it, it was a fun adventure, now I saw it and it doesn't hold up, that's one thing. But if it's a film like, I'm trying to think of a film, from our childhood that was more geared towards appealing to children, those films I don't think necessarily have to hold up then if you watch them as an adult, do they?
I think certain aspects, yes, or certain aspects, no. Like, is it the fact that you liked it as a kid because you're a kid and you didn't know any better? You know what I mean? Like, right. The thing that I'm thinking of is like G.I. Joe, the cartoon. As a kid, I liked it. Mm-hmm. Watching it now, it's awful. Like the 80s cartoon is awful, and that doesn't hold up. Why did I like it as a kid? Because I was, it was all I knew of the time. yeah, I would say, like, yeah, it should be accredited for what it did for the time. I shouldn't think you should take that away, but I do think a film should also be recognized for, standing the test of time or being ahead of its time. So I wouldn't take what it accomplished away during that time period, but I also would say that my issue more so is that I don't think it was ever good. It's just that I was a kid and I didn't know any better. Right. It's like watching a kid movie today. Would you like watch a kid movie today that, like, say something on Nickelodeon cartoon? I think it's just easier, and that's geared to the same audience that G.I. Joe was, and you probably would hate it because it's like, this is stupid. Right. But you like the one because that's when you were a kid, so nostalgia can kind of can affect you in that way. So it's tough, but I do think, like, because then you have other things like in classic film, or just film in general, where there's certain techniques that were used, which could be like, why do they do that, or why do they like stop motion animation or something like that? And it's like, well, that's all they had at that time. So it's tough because I guess the question just becomes like, is it, why doesn't it hold up? I think is the key to look at.
And I'm not saying I disagree with you. I just kind of wanted to hear some of your thoughts on that. I think the whole nostalgia question would be a discussion for a different time period and kind of how that all plays into it. But I think they're all interesting things that kind of go into your rating of a film and, when you're seeing it and how you're grading it, that type of thing. But I think you made a good point. Was it a bad movie and you just took it a different way at the time, or I think that's a good way to look at it. So I think we also should probably table our discussion on originality in Hollywood and maybe save that for another week so that we can get more in depth and we don't have to rush through that. So if you're not opposed to it, do you want to get into what we've been watching?
Yeah, definitely, I can do that.
All right, so let's get into what we've been watching from this week. I will start with a film that I had never seen before, and I would tell you what year it was from, but I can't remember off the top of my head. It's within the last 5 years, isn't it? Jack Reacher?
That was from 2013.
2013? Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like it was longer ago than that. But obviously Jack Reacher starring Tom Cruise. You saw this film, I know, back in
No, it's 2012.
couple years ago.
That was a mistake.
Okay, it's 2012. I know I had been kind of pooping on Tom Cruise for a long time, and you had said, some of these films weren't that bad. I can't remember what your opinion on Jack Reacher was.
I thought it was okay. It felt like a really watered down, generic version of like Jack Bauer meets Jason Bourne. So I felt like it had moments that I liked, but I thought overall it was just kind of generic. I thought so. It was fine. It was just kind of forgettable.
I think that's a great description of that. I don't think I need to say anything else about that. No, I think so too. I think it's a little bit watered down. I think they kind of set it up where it could have been a lot better than it ended up being. I didn't realize how many times in film that guys punch girls.
Well, if you Nicolas Cage, you do it all the time.
But I'm not talking about like in a domestic abuse like battery type. I mean, I guess it still is, but I'm not talking about like I don't know, like a husband and wife just going crazy and trying to beat each other up, or an abusive husband or whatever. But just like random guys punching random girls, like it happens way more than I ever thought it did, and it happens in this film too, where the girl just gets clocked out of nowhere, and I'm just like,
have you seen The Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage? Because like it has one of the most.
No,
it has a moment. You don't need to see it. You can just Google the moment. It's just. It has one of those where it's like, he just punched that old lady. Like, why? Like,
what's going on here?
Just the way it was executed. I mean, it's hard. It feels like a bad thing to laugh at, but just seeing it, you're like, that happened. Wow.
But I don't know. I liked Robert Duvall and Jack Reacher. I guess he played an interesting character. I guess, but
I think Werner Herzog is just the crazy Russian.
Oh yeah.
I felt like it was just like they didn't even like give him a script. They're like, just be Werner Herzog, and that's exactly what he did. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. Jai Courtney, of course, is in this film.
Oh man, the guy who was created just to make Sam Worthington didn't feel like he was charismatic. So.
But yeah, like I agree with you 100%. This is watered down. This is not as good as it could have been, and I would give this one probably on a scale of 10. I'm going to go right in the 4 range.
Yeah, that's about. I would probably be maybe a little higher, but yeah, not a movie I'm very passionate about by any means. The other, I guess I'll start with, last week I talked about it. My goal is at least to watch one 2015 film, whatever movie I'm assigned, and a classic film, so I don't get and the classic film I ended up watching was Elephant Man for the first time, David Lynch, and I ended up really, really enjoying it. And I feel like Elephant Man is to David Lynch the same way like The Killing is to Stanley Kubrick, where both of those people have really distinct styles, right? That can be polarizing, but, the Elephant Man and The Killing, those styles are really toned down, maybe come a little bit before they kind of reach their, where they were willing to kind of go beyond their broad approach, because they're very unique, they're unique styles. But Elephant Man tells the story of Elephant Man based on a true story. This movie's been around for a long time, so I don't have a great deal to say about it. Mostly, I just think it's interesting in today's society, like watching it now, because it does. They have some interesting things to say about fame and the way we treat people, and it's just intriguing looking at that and how it's handled in this compared to like the current state of like pop culture and celebrity worship and stuff like that. Like looking in how they relate, like how we, in all sense of the word, love a freak show and just love kind of creating these things and like oddities and stuff like that, whatever they may be. If it's someone like the Elephant Man or it's just some random celebrity, which is interesting. But great performances. It's looks great, black and white, which I think was a smart choice. And I guess what's funny about this, I guess history wise, a few things. And Mel Brooks, I guess, was the person who really proposed to the studio to get David Lynch to direct this movie. Who a lot of people didn't think he would be able to do like a overall broad Hollywood film, but he did, and it was great. It also was responsible in a great deal for like creating the makeup award, because it won no Oscar for makeup because it didn't exist at the time, or it was the next year after that. But the makeup in it is incredible, and the performances are all solid. So it's a powerful movie, no doubt. It's I think ranks up there as one of the best movies of the 80s for sure, or at least of 1980 when it came out. So I think it's a classic by every sense of imagination, and I think it deserves the praise that it gets. So I actually gave this, I know, after talking about ratings, I feel like maybe hyperbolic, but I definitely give it a 9.5. I think it's quite a great movie, and I'm not a Lynch fan. I can recognize his talent, but I tend to not like his movies a great deal. I just don't enjoy them as experiences. It's just not for me. So I know maybe for Lynch fans, like he's like Mulholland Drive or other things are better. Blue Velvet, which I think I might try to see this weekend, but
I've seen that one.
I have not seen it. So, but I've liked Elephant Man, so I enjoyed it a great deal.
Awesome, great recommendation there. I might have to put that on the list to see with that high of a score. Next one that I saw here that we saw this week was a film called Welcome to the Punch. Have you ever seen this?
I did last year, I believe, and I don't remember anything about it. So I don't.
It's a 2013 film. The IMDb synopsis goes: when a notorious criminal is forced to return to London, it gives a detective one last chance to take down the man he's always been after. Starring James McAvoy and Mark Strong. James McAvoy plays a detective who is injured in one of his first encounters with the Mark Strong character, who is a notorious criminal. There's a storyline about something that happens with Mark Strong's son that kind of brings him back out of hiding and puts him back into exposure. And James McAvoy basically goes back on the trail to try to track him down. It also involves different conspiracies and different things as far as the police force and the criminals and whatever happened involving Mark Strong's son and that type of thing. I don't know if that makes you remember anything about this film or not.
Not at all.
Okay. That's probably
I saw. I remember kind of a bad thing. I remember watching it like in December when it's like I'm watching tons of movies, and I think it's just one that just came up. Well, the bad thing about doing that, sometimes you have those movies that just come and go, and that's that one. I remember the movie looking like good. Like I remember it looking good, as in the sense of just like filmmaking standpoint, but I don't remember anything about it. So.
And there's probably a reason for that. It was on Netflix. We came across it, so I mean, obviously it was free, and we saw James McAvoy and Mark Strong were attached to it, and we're like, whatever, we'll check it out. And it was interesting. Amanda fell asleep during it, and then had to rewatch the last 45 minutes later. But I can totally see why it didn't have a big impact on you as well. I think it's kind of like your paint by numbers criminal conspiracy, with good cops and bad cops and good politicians and bad politicians. And I think I've seen this a number of different times, and it didn't necessarily do too much to kind of stand out or to break that mold for me. So, I like Mark Strong. I like what he does, and James McAvoy is a good actor as well, but I don't think there's enough in this film to really recommend it or to champion it for any reason. So I'm probably kind of in the middle of the road on this one. It wasn't necessarily something that was bad, but it wasn't something that was good. So I'm probably going to be right at a 5 out of 10 for Welcome to the Punch, which was from 2013.
Alrighty.
So what do you got?
Well, I got one that you talked about. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't really remember. Man, these things go by quickly. And it's one I think I don't remember what score you gave it, but I remember you being disappointed by it, and that was Slow West.
Yeah, I liked the film, and I don't want things to go. My review probably made it seem like I was harder on the film than I was. I did enjoy the film. I just felt, disappointed might be too strong of a word. I just felt maybe a little more underwhelmed than I wanted to be. Like I felt like it could have been even that much better. So I just kind of wanted something more out of that film, but I still fall positively on it. Okay. But go ahead.
Yeah, I actually liking it quite a bit. And for those that don't know, it Slow West, which stars Cody McPhee as this kind of young, innocent kid who is kind of trekking across the U.S. to find his supposed lover, or lost long love, I would say. And what I find interesting about it is that, I find he works really well as this, young kid who's very naive, and his romantic view of the world is very idealistic, and I find it intriguing to seeing him get broken down bit by bit. And how he's the type of guy who basically thinks he's prepared for the world when all he has to travel across the United States is this, this book he bought at a thrift store. His gun doesn't really even work. He's clearly well over his head, and even you wonder if his overall mission is in jest. Is he romanticizing his relationship with this person? Is it real or not? So I think there's a lot of interesting things to that, and I think McPhee works well as that. There's even this porcelain doll texture to his skin, which is interesting compared to something like Fassbender or Mendelsohn, the other actors who just seem gritty and dirty and grimy, where he's just clean shaven, and just it's intriguing in that aspect as a visual standpoint. So I find that kind of works well, and I don't think it's accidental that you have this kid who is very overall has good intentions, and you see him being taken advantage of by all these different parties with the background and the subtext of what's happening to Native Americans going on. It doesn't focus a great deal on that, but certainly in the background there. So obviously, some allegorical implications you can pull from that, and. What I really love about movies are those that kind of place you into a world that's active and already going, and ones that you feel like there's much more going on outside of what you're watching, and I think it does that really well on a number of occasions. You come upon it a campsite that's burnt out, and this Native American Indian campsite that's been destroyed, or just these different accidents of someone who was happening, or there will be elements that aren't explained, stumble upon some Native Americans try to steal this horse and what they're like, or there's relationships with characters that go beyond what you're told that there's not really delved that into. There's a lot of just things that happen, and you can just through context and through figure out what's there, which I liked. I like it when a movie does that, where it's just things are happening. There's a world here outside of the one you're seeing, and you can kind of just keep up with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good aspect of it as well. And I like the idea that not everything's explained. I like the idea that, there's people coming from this direction, going that direction, vice versa. Everybody's just trying to make their way and trying to find their place, and I think that adds something to it as well. I guess my biggest thing was I just think it would have benefited. I know we talk about runtimes and length of movie and whatnot. I honestly think this one would have benefited from 15 or 20 minutes more in the journey section of this. I don't think there needed to be more time, spent with the last act and what happened there, or I don't really feel like we needed much more as far as setting up everything. I think that was fine. We just kind of got plunged right into it, and it was easy to pick up and kind of figure out what was going on. I just kind of wish the journey was just a little bit longer. But
I mean, I could see that. I could think it definitely could have maybe fleshed out the relationship between Fassbender and McPhee a little bit more. I don't know. I thought it pacing wise, it felt like appropriate, and I think it really. No,
I don't think it was a pacing thing. I never thought it was. I mean, I think it is slow. It would come across as slow for some people, but I don't think it was necessarily a pacing thing. Is why I'm saying that it was more. I was just clamoring for more, like you said, of the relationship aspect of let me see even more. Like, I'm intrigued about these characters. Give me even more now.
Yeah.
And it was just a greedy thing for me, I guess.
I could see that. I guess I kind of like it when it's like, okay, it doesn't overload you, because I think that's a tendency with movies today, it give you too much. So maybe that's just a preference where I'd rather have that aspect of it. And I think too, it just, like when I was talking about just that world, that kind of giving you an idea that there's a world here that's taking place outside of what you're seeing. It also kind of hammers home the dangers of everything that's going on, which I think gets into like how morality is a detriment to these people and to survive, which I think tells you so much more about their motivations and what they're doing than any type of exposition ever could, which I really liked. And I think to me though, like my biggest takeaway, and maybe that's because like I liked the relationship between McPhee and Fassbender, but it wasn't really what I really enjoyed about it. I think, honestly, what I really took away from it, what I really appreciated, was just the direction of John McLaren and the work of his DP, which was Robbie Ryan. And I just thought there was a lot of really great visual punctuations to certain scenes. Like certain things would happen, and then there's just a little extra element that would just help it a little bit. The one that comes first to mind is that there is a situation occurs in this like trading post, and I think overall that scene is done really well, but then at the end there's just a little extra element that is revealed, and the way it's revealed I thought was really just the framing of the shot was perfect, how it just stayed there for just the right amount of time to kind of let it soak in. I thought that was brilliant in that way. Well, maybe brilliant is a strong word, but overall, too, I just think it shot really well. The last shootout, I find really interesting. There's a moment of like where there's a specific shot where you're seeing this character kind of laying on the ground, and there's almost like this element of camouflage where someone steps into the frame, where you're like, where did he come from? Which I thought was really intriguing, and it's just a lot of interesting ways in that end. And I just like too, there's like I don't want to spoil this, but at the end.
A lot of people either liked or disliked how it ended.
I actually really liked how it ended. Specifically, there is like a rather change of events, like a strong something happens that you'll know it when you see it. Like it kind of just happens, and I liked how it just happened, and how it almost, and you wondered, like, is it even going to acknowledge the fact of what just happened, and it just let that linger, and you're like, well, maybe they won't, like maybe they will, maybe this, like, which I really liked. And then the last shot too of just, again, don't want to spoil anything, where you just kind of went back and you kind of saw all the kind of the journey that you went through, and just and how that happened. I think that was really good. So I think that to me was my favorite part of it, just the overall look of it, and I thought it was quite intriguing. I thought that's where it really sold me.
Yeah, I think visually it's something that's great. I think the choice of how it was shot was great. I think the cinematography was great. The scene you're talking about is an early favorite for probably one of my top scenes of the year at the end there. And I think there is a lot to like. Like I said, I think that just the greedy person in me wanted a little bit more of that journey, a little bit more of the, whether it be Mendelssohn's character or Cody Smith-McPhee's character or Fassbender or whoever it was. I just wanted a little bit more, so that was the only reason why it kind of fell a little bit shorter on me. But still a positive score for me. What score did you give it?
I was hovering like 7.58, but I think I'll go 8 because it's, for me, I don't know where it fall, like considering the movies I've seen this year, which I haven't seen a great deal, to be honest. But it's one I kind of had high expectations for, and one I think that actually kind of fell through, which has not happened a lot so far of what I've seen.
Right. There's a conversation on Twitter lately about most disappointing film of the year. That'd be a battle right now, let me tell you. There's a lot of films vying for that spot. All right, well, obviously you've been hearing Amanda kind of come in and out of the record today since she's been on call for work, so she's had to disappear at times and she's had to reappear, but she's here now, so we'll give her a second to talk about one of the movies she's seen this week. So what do you got up first, Amanda?
I saw a 2014 film, The Quiet Ones. Directed by John Pogue, starring Jared Harris and Sam Claflin? What is that? I don't know what that last name is. Not gonna help me?
Claflin? That sounds good.
Sure, okay. And it's allegedly inspired by actual events. It takes place in a 1974 part of England. I think they're at Oxford University. And it's got some quote-unquote documented footage and some actual normal perspective filming, so that was a nice mix. It also has Erin Richards, who is Barbara from Gotham.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She plays the same kind of
crazy,
slutty, confused lady. A lot of problems, a lot of issues. Works for her. The movie is... The premise is a professor and a few of his students are trying to prove that the paranormal happens based on what is already in the mind, that they manifest this kinetic energy.
I think you lost me there.
Well, this doctor uses these extreme methods to cure what are clearly events of the supernatural or the occult, and seems like he experimented on his own son, who even suffered from the same kind of afflictions. And they're keeping a girl who is possessed, and they're trying to cure her. And this doctor always has these rational explanations for everything that he's seeing, that, you know, they're in his face supernatural events, but he still has all these rational ways to explain away what he's seeing. I thought it was a really, really good film. It obviously inspired by actual events. I don't know how true to form that will be, but it was entertaining. It wasn't your normal run-of-the-mill possession film. I thought it had some really cool aspects, and the relationships between all the characters are pretty complex. And
would you consider yourself an expert on possession films?
I have seen quite a few, yes.
So this is near the top?
I would say this is, yes. It's not as scary as, like The Exorcism of Emily Rose or, even The Exorcism, but it's got some creepiness.
Any downside to the film?
I think that the Erin Richards character was pretty cheesy and kind of unneeded, but other than that, I liked it.
And what would you give it for a score?
Out of 10, I would give it, let's say, a 6.
6 out of 10 for The Quiet Ones from 2014. We also saw San Andreas in the theater this week from The Rock, of course. And Amanda felt probably a little bit more positive on this one than I did. This is one that I can't give it a negative review because it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the rating section, as far as I think the movie does what it sets out to do. It's a disaster film. It's The Rock. It's a summer popcorn flick that wants to keep you, on the edge of your seat or interested or take you on this little journey, and I think it does succeed on those aspects. Obviously, with most disaster films, you have to throw the science out the window and ignore everything you know about science, weather, physics, whatever it might be. It all has to go out the window. Or through a crack in the earth, I should say, I guess. So it does do that. I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me, and this is not necessarily, I don't think I can spoil anything in this film. I really don't think I can. So if someone's mad at me for spoiling something about San Andreas, I deeply apologize. But Paul Giamatti plays a seismic... I'm going to say seismic scientist, and that's completely the wrong term, but he's someone that studies earthquakes, works at Caltech. They're trying to develop a way to predict earthquakes and that type of thing. And his storyline is completely separate from The Rock's. They never interact. They're never on screen together. It's nothing like that. But what I find funny is Giamatti's character, they're trying to warn people. They're trying to get, that warning out before to tell people, that this earthquake's coming or that, bigger shocks are coming, telling people what to do, whether, it be to vacate or, evacuate or take cover, whatever it might be. And basically the whole movie, I don't remember the runtime, but let's say for 2 hours, people are dying in this film. Like, there was millions of people that died, at least, over the course of this film. And it's kind of funny because in the last scene they're kind of flashing back to Giamatti's warning and saying how many people they saved by warning everybody of the earthquake, but they didn't show any of these people that were saved. Like, they just showed a whole lot of people dying. So I don't know how effective that warning was, and if it did save people, I don't think the movie actually showed us who those people were outside of a select few. So it just seemed kind of funny from that aspect. But The Rock was good. I think a lot of people are praising The Rock from this performance. Someone said that his tear ducts don't work. I don't know if that was a joke or if they actually don't. But there was one scene where I kept waiting for him to cry and he didn't. So I'm now curious. I'm going to have to look up Rock trivia to see if he can actually cry or not. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's Chuck Norris or something. He doesn't have tear ducts. But yeah, overall, the biggest thing I learned out of this film is that The Rock can pilot anything. It doesn't matter if it's a plane, a helicopter, a boat, a car, a bus, a train. He can drive everything. So if you're ever in a disaster situation, try to be near The Rock because he can get you out of there.
Perfect. It's like the Swiss Army knife of pilots. So.
He is. So, but I think it was fun. I think visually there was a lot of crazy things to see. I think that's one of the things that was the first time I probably remember it was from like in Independence Day. Kind of that effect that you have when you're watching something and they do it on a scale where you're literally seeing like things being destroyed, or just seeing the United States and this ripple effect of this earthquake going through California and things shifting and moving and stuff like that. It's just something crazy to kind of see when it's visually done like that. So I think it is a fun experience like that. I did not see it in 3D or IMAX or anything like that, so maybe it was even better than that. I didn't care to spend the extra money to do that. But I think overall, if you go into it, knowing what to expect and just trying to have fun with a disaster film, I think you won't be disappointed. If you're going in thinking this is going to be some type of epic film that's going to rock your world, you might be thinking the wrong thing. But overall, I'd probably give this one like a 6 out of 10. It's decent, but it's nothing I'm going to start jumping up and down about. It's not something I'm going to buy on DVD to have or something like that. But so 6 out of 10 for me for San Andreas. What about you? What's up next?
I think I have 2 more. This one I'm not going to say a great deal about.
Okay.
I just don't have a lot to say to it. You might.
I already know which one you're talking about.
Maybe, I don't know. Pitch Perfect 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you talk about this yet? I don't remember if you did or not.
Yeah, we saw. I don't think we ended up the week we saw it. We didn't talk about it on the podcast because we were kind of running long, and I ended up skipping it. But no, we did see this. Amanda hates the Pitch Perfect films, and I'm the one that likes them. So, but I don't think this one was good in comparison to the first one.
Yeah, I liked. I mean, I'll be the first one I went into having no interest whatsoever, and I'm like, oh, that was that was interesting enough. It was enjoyable. It's better than having to watch an episode of Glee, so that was good. It was nothing like, and I like Anna Kendrick, so it was charming enough. But I felt for Pitch Perfect 2 it was just I just felt like the novelty is kind of worn off. The songs I didn't think were. I mean, I'm not a musical guy by any means, but I just didn't think they were as interesting or as fun. And I think it's hard to do comedy sequels no matter what it is. And I think that this kind of falls a lot of the same issues, like having to repeat a lot of the same jokes. I thought like the additional, like they have like the legacy character that comes in, this young girl. I thought her storyline I wasn't that interested in. I felt like they had to artificially create a lot of drama, like with her Anna Kendrick's character getting this other job and trying to be afraid to say. And it just felt like it was just trying to get to a point where they were in the first movie. Like that's always my issue with when it comes to comedies. It's like it kind of just basically tries to kind of take away everything that they built up to the last film to get back to where you started, just to build yourself up again. And I think that is what happens here. And there are some funny parts here and there, but I thought like they give Fat Amy a lot more screen time and a lot more story, which I just think is a mistake. I like that actress. I think she's funny, but it's just to the point where it's like I get it, like that you can't. It's like Melissa McCarthy. It's like the same type of joke, or really any the comedy actor. It's like, okay, give me something new here. And I guess my biggest issue too was that it didn't feel like the last thing that they were doing was just like this contest, this worldwide contest, like they had to win in order to be able to compete. But I guess I was like, well, they graduated, so they're not competing anymore anyways. And they are even competing like throughout the film already, so it felt like I don't know. It felt like it like I'm like, this is for nothing really, and I guess that's kind of the point. It was like it was for them type of thing, or I don't know. So that to me sounded like if they could have.
I think there was some issues with that whole setup, and it didn't even make sense to a point. Like you have to win this world competition to be able to compete in this national competition. Was that? Yeah. Did I get that right?
I guess that was more the issue too. I felt like this one, I thought it took itself too seriously in that aspect, where it's like it really made like the competition like the important part with it. Where I felt like the last movie, really that was just kind of an afterthought. It was more about these characters, and I think that was kind of another issue. So I didn't hate it. I just thought it just take it or leave it really.
Yeah, I would rather it been something similar where they're just competing against other colleges and kind of developing the characters more. I don't think I necessarily needed it to go, global. I thought my favorite part of the first one was the riff-off that they did, because I thought it was clever, trying to match a word and then get it to a different song. And this one they tried to shift that, and they did it like where you had to match the beat, and that completely just was pointless to me. Like, maybe it's because I'm more of a lyric person than a musical person, but that scene didn't, like, that was one of my favorite scenes of the first film, and the scene that they did that in the second film where they're just matching the beat didn't work for me at all. And I also found it very odd, and I don't quite understand why they made the choice to have Anna Kendrick so infatuated with the manly-looking woman.
The German woman? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought some of those jokes were kind of funny, but I didn't really...
I just didn't get what was going on. I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny, but why? I don't know.
Yeah, it was just, I was like, okay, there you go.
I don't know. This reminds me of, like, I guess it's like any sequel, but it's almost like Despicable Me 2 compared to Despicable Me. It's just like, it's all the same people, but I just didn't feel like it was as good in any way, shape, or form. So, I still like it because I like music and whatnot, and I like a cappella a lot, even though everyone judges me for that, but I still, like I said, didn't think it was as good as the first one. Are you rating, like, I'm guessing you're like at a 5 or a 4 or something like that?
I'm straight at a 5 out of 10 for this one, so.
All right.
Did you give it a grade? Or?
I think I gave it probably a 5.5, 6. Okay. I think I was probably a 6 if I'm being honest with myself. Just slightly above average for the musical aspect. All right, let's get back to Amanda and give her a chance to talk about another film that she saw this week. So what else did you have this week?
I saw another 2014 flick called Before I Go to Sleep.
Did you watch this before you went to sleep?
I did. I actually could not sleep, so I got out of the bed and watched before I go to sleep.
And then were you able to sleep? You were able to sleep afterwards?
Yes, I was.
All right.
I wasn't expecting to stay up for the entire film, but I really got into it, so I ended up staying up for the entire duration of the movie. But I selected it based on the cast. It has Colin Firth, Mark Strong, and Nicole Kidman. Also,
2 out of 3 is not bad.
Yeah, a little Nicole Kidman, give or take. It also has a little appearance. I don't know what the actor's name is, but he's Tommen Baratheon from Game of Thrones.
So everybody else will know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a really awesome movie. It had all kinds of twists and turns. And it's about a woman who wakes up every day remembering nothing as a result of a traumatic accident in her past.
Are you sure that wasn't played by Drew Barrymore?
This is a much more dramatic, intense thriller version of 50 First Dates.
So which movie do you prefer?
See, I really do like 50 First Dates. I feel like it is a feel-good movie, and I've revisited a ton of times, and I can probably watch it, a billion more times if I wanted. This I feel was a lot more dramatic, but I can't really put them on the same level. I don't know. I can't make a choice there.
Recommend this movie or not?
I would definitely recommend this movie. There's some really outstanding performances all the way across the board, and it was really cool to see her impact on everybody in her life, since she has this what is she? I don't know what she calls it, like an amnesiac is what they're called.
Okay.
So it was a really, really awesome movie.
And what would you score this one? You had, let's see, your last film you said 6 out of 10 for The Quiet Ones, which is barely above average. What do you think about Before I Go to Sleep?
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
7.5. That's a high score for you.
It was really good. I enjoyed it.
All right. If we could now, before we get to my homework assignment, I'd love it for you to go first.
Okay.
Might buy us enough time to have another voice when we talk about your homework assignment. So,
sure. Yeah.
Did you have a chance to see Open Grave?
I did, and it was actually it was streaming on Starz, so I got to see it actually quite easily. And yeah, I saw Open Grave, and I think honestly, if it wasn't for you, I never would have heard of this movie. And for those that don't know, it stars Shartley Copley, the guy from Chappie and District 9 and whatnot. And the film opens up in one of those scenarios where it's like he opens up, as the title suggests, in an open grave. His body's all around him, and he doesn't really know where he is, who he is, why he's there. He ends up stumbling across a group of other people, similar situation. They don't know who they are. And then it kind of goes from there. It's clearly things aren't good, or strange things are happening. You have obviously this massive grave, bodies are everywhere. There are these other people who are kind of like, they seem like feral human beings, like they're zombie-like but not quite zombies. So it's trying to figure out like why exactly they're there, who they are, and and then they see that there's a date and that's circled, and knowing what that means. So it's all this like mystery that's going on, and I like movies like that are like that, right? That kind of that it's just like, okay, here's this thing, and like let's try to figure it out. Like a lot of mystery, right. And the question becomes, like, I think the determination of how good it is how well it answers that mystery, and I think logically, like, what the answer to it makes sense. I think but I think that sometimes like you start building it up in your own head, and similar to like what you said with Slow West, where you kind of get greedy and you want it to be something, and when it's kind of like what, like I wouldn't say obvious, but you thought maybe it would be a little bit more. I thought maybe it would be a little bit more out there, or maybe a little bit more, maybe something that wasn't. Was different or vastly different than what was expected, and I mean there were some little bit twists and turns here when it came to just the general mystery, but I felt like it kind of once you found out a little bit about the information, it almost felt like you can kind of put the pieces together already, and I was hoping it would just jumble up a little bit more, but I did like the idea of like this world and like the little like touches they have, and like how they find out like the scarecrows. That's all I will say is that there's this how they discover that, and the idea of like how why they don't have a memory, and kind of this like cycle they follow themselves in. So I did like that as well. So I did overall enjoy it. I'm kind of surprised you liked this movie, because I'm just thinking, just like, because it is, horror-ish. It's not, I wouldn't say too gory. I mean, it is graphic in certain aspects. Like there are creatures, I would say, that kind of reminds me of like the creatures or the people in 28 Days Later, but not as, but a little bit more put together. That was interesting.
What did you think of the last scene? Was that the one that I praised? It's been so long since I've seen it.
I was wondering, because I mean, the last scene was interesting, but I don't know if it, like, what specifically it was.
I gotta go back and look at my notes.
Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't. I guess that was part of it too. Thinking there was going to be this giant twist at the end, and
I set it up wrong.
Yeah, there necessarily wasn't. I mean, it was like, there was like a slight reveal, but I guess I don't know. Like, it didn't seem like it wasn't like, say, like a Twilight Zone ending where it's like, oh, that completely recontextualizes everything, right. Or I think it maybe the ending kind of realized how big of a scope you're dealing with
right.
compared to before. So that was interesting. It was a good final shot.
I think that was probably the part that I liked about
it.
It was the scale that you didn't necessarily realize you were on.
Yeah, which was like kind of horrifying in that aspect. So maybe, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I did enjoy it. I think it is like a good. I think it has a good concept and it executes it well. I guess I was just hoping that it would be a little bit more creative in how it answered it. But I gave it like a 6.5 out of 10. So
okay. Yeah, I think I was actually pretty similar on my score as well. I think I was in the 6-7 range as well, and I'm not really sure why I liked it as much as I did. It's definitely not something that you would, if you know me, you're not going to like recommend this and be like, oh, you're going to like this film. And I don't even know what made me watch it either. It just kind of was on a whim, and I think maybe that was part of it, was that I kind of went in thinking I know nothing about this type of thing, and then I was like, oh, I was actually somewhat intrigued and like at least wanted to pay attention and figure out what was going on. So I liked it even more than I thought I would when I went in to watch it. So, but I think we're pretty similar on our scores for that one. 6.5, 7, somewhere in there for me. So, all right. Well, I didn't do what I told you I was going to do and give you something you hated. So, I'll have to try again at some point. But that leaves the other homework assignment, which is The Master, which is obviously from Paul Thomas Anderson. And what I realized is I haven't seen as many Paul Thomas Anderson films as I thought I had. I've seen this. I've seen There Will Be Blood. I've seen Inherent Vice, and I believe those are his last 3, if I'm thinking right. But I haven't seen Punch Drunk Love.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that.
And I haven't seen Boogie Nights.
Definitely. Great.
Yeah. And I think maybe I've seen bits of Magnolia, but that came out when I was a senior in high school. So if I did see bits and pieces, it was back then, and I don't really remember much about it. So I might have to revisit the early half of his filmography just to kind of get a better bearing on things. I really enjoyed There Will Be Blood, but I also really enjoy anything that Daniel Day-Lewis does. So, so I don't know if that was the main part of it, but I liked most of There Will Be Blood. We weren't doing podcasts back in 2007, but I have a feeling it would have been somewhere in the conversation for top 10 of the year without taking a real close look right now at all the movies that came out there. But so I like There Will Be Blood. His most recent film, Inherent Vice, I gotta say that I kind of hated that. I know it's supposed to be, according to everybody that likes it, about the journey and kind of just about the experience and just to go on that journey with the characters, but it just wasn't enough for me in that film. It might be in some other films, but that one it wasn't. And I'm a fan of most of the people that were involved in that film as far as the cast and everything like that. It just didn't work for me on a lot of levels. So for as far as Paul Thomas Anderson, if you're just judging it off of those two films, There Will Be Blood and Inherent Vice, really liked one of them, really disliked one of them. So I'm kind of in between on him. I'm not going to put him up there as like the best director going these days, as a lot of people do. But I do think he does a lot of original, unique, and interesting stuff, which leads us to 2012's The Master. Now, I know you rewatched this as well, and you had seen it prior to that. So why don't you start with giving me your thoughts on kind of where you sat at it beforehand and on the rewatch, kind of where it fell for you.
Okay. Yeah, it was my top 10 of the year it came out, which was, I think, 2012 as well.
Yep.
And I saw it in theater. I liked it a great deal. Inherent Vice I'm indifferent on, mostly because I guess I wasn't a big... The characters didn't really grab me as much as other ones, but... so yeah, this is about the third time I've probably seen it straight through, beginning to end. I saw it in the theater, I saw it when I got it on Blu-ray, and this is the second time I'm watching it. But I've watched scenes here and there on occasion. Like I mentioned, the first time I saw it, I liked it, obviously. I liked it a great deal. It made my top 10 of that year. And after each subsequent viewing, I've enjoyed it more and more. Just because it reminds me of kind of the same reason I like her a lot. There's just... it has a lot of what I look for in great movies. And starting with performances, which I think are fantastic here, there's just, for me, a lot to take out of it, thematically wise, and a lot of theories, and one of those movies where it's like, I can go into it with a certain idea of what I think it's about, and even having supporting information, and even writing up you can write a paper supporting, this is why I think this movie is about and why, and then watch it again and no, I'm completely rewriting what I'm thinking. I think this is what it's focusing on, which I think is the reason I think it works here is just because there's so much going on in the sense of what it's saying, and a lot of ideas that I think are expressed in interesting ways. And I think similar to that of we talked about Slow West, I just also think it's just a fantastically made movie when it comes to elements of cinematography are gorgeous. The score by I think is one of my favorites of this decade so far. Johnny Greenwood, who did the score. I think it's not as good as the score he did for There Will Be Blood, but I think it fits this movie really well. And I think the biggest takeaway initially is the trio of amazing performances by Amy Adams, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Joaquin Phoenix, who are all doing something vastly different. I think there are some big moments for those characters, specifically that of Hoffman and Phoenix, but I think there are a lot of subtlety to performances as well. So I don't know. To me, from the first time I saw it, I was intrigued by it, and then I don't know. I really just enjoy it, and maybe enjoy is a wrong word. I am captivated by just what he's doing with this movie.
Okay. As far as, obviously you've seen it 3 times. This is just the first time that both myself and Amanda have seen it. I finished watching it, and I was trying to kind of put everything together and come to terms with what I thought about the film. And I was looking on Wikipedia, because that's a great place to go for quality information, to see kind of what Paul Thomas Anderson's view on it was, or what he was trying to do with it, or whatever. And I actually wasn't surprised when I read this, and I'm reading straight from here, but it says that he combined unused scenes from early drafts of There Will Be Blood, the life stories of John Steinbeck, the life stories of L. Ron Hubbard, who was obviously the founder of Scientology, and stories Jason Robards had told him on the set of Magnolia about his drinking days in the Navy during the war. The fact that there's that many different things influencing it, to me, is very noticeable in the film. You can see that there's a lot of different things, there's a lot of different aspects that are kind of being thrown together and creating one film. And I think for me that's where it doesn't work as well. It seems too disjointed for me. What I like the Philip Seymour Hoffman part. I like his storyline, and if that would have been the main crux of the film, and all of Joaquin Phoenix stuff would have been more of a smaller supporting aspect of the film, then I think I would be more on board with it, because I enjoy the commentary and the thematic stuff that a lot of people would kind of associate, and probably some of the stuff that you were talking about as far as the different thematic things that you can see on this when it comes to, you know, the formation of this cult and the inner workings of it, and, you know, between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Amy Adams, between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix, and between him and his son, or just between him and the naysayers or people that are trying to, you know, kind of question his tactics, his means, or whatever he's purporting to be able to do. I found all of that more interesting, more intriguing. I think my favorite scene in the whole thing is when Philip Seymour Hoffman is going back and forth with the young man at the, I don't know.
The skeptic or
whatever. Yeah, the skeptic who was kind of going at him. That was also the moment where I literally laughed out loud, like, for a couple minutes when Philip Seymour Hoffman lets out the pig fuck line. I was literally dying at that. So, I mean, I liked all of that. I didn't care for as much the stuff that was directly related to Joaquin Phoenix. And I'm not saying that he wasn't needed or he didn't show another angle to the whole thing, but when it was more of the stuff just centered on him, it was more the stuff that kind of turned me off a bit. But that's just kind of my initial thoughts. I'll kind of break it down a little bit more, but I'll let Amanda say kind of what her initial takeaway from The Master was first.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, as far as I would have liked it more, I think, if it would have been focused more on Philip Seymour Hoffman and his relationships in life versus me sitting there for however many hours trying to figure out why Joaquin Phoenix is drinking things that develop photos. I just I couldn't process what his thought process was. I couldn't even rationalize anything that he was doing. I didn't know why he was doing anything, and it was just confusing me the whole time. And then throw in some really crazy scenes between him and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I was trying to like it. I was intrigued. I do like Philip Seymour Hoffman. Joaquin Phoenix, I mean, props to him for being able to morph his body to look like that. Like, even at one point when his shirt ripped off and he was in the jail, like, his shoulder blade just looks out of place, and he just looks really creepy. I don't know. Really
skinny.
And
I like Joaquin Phoenix. I like Philip Seymour Hoffman. I like the people involved. I like Amy Adams. You know, I like Paul Thomas Anderson as far as There Will Be Blood. So, I mean, I wasn't against any of those people, but I just wasn't interested in the character of Joaquin Phoenix as far as being one of the main characters. Like I said, if it was a smaller supporting character, then I would have been probably more on board. This movie also did something that a lot of movies can't do. There was a scene in which I was disturbed, and I, like, literally turned to Amanda and was like, I'm never going to be able to burn that image out of my head. And then the movie follows it up with a scene that's even worse, as far as the image that was burned into my head. And I'm not saying that there wasn't reasons for it, or there wasn't, a purpose for maybe part of it. But
see, I don't think so. I think the use of nudity in this was completely useless. It was almost in those, like, what I qualify as senseless boobies movies where there's just random boobs. Like, I didn't understand it. It would have made more sense if everybody in the room was slowly losing their clothes or whatever, but it was just the women, and I couldn't understand that. And I'm like, are they objectifying them? Like, what's going on here? And then I found that the whole, even like Joaquin Phoenix and maybe just the use of sexuality throughout the film wasn't done in a way that was, I'm not necessarily saying like it has to be provocative, but it just wasn't well done to me.
See, and I get part of it because they're developing Joaquin Phoenix's character as someone who is both obviously dealing with his alcoholism, or whatever you want to call it when it's not technically.
There's alcoholism.
and then also his I don't know if you want to call it a sex addiction or if it's just his general horniness or whatever. Like, I get that that's kind of what they're trying to paint the picture for that, but again, that kind of goes into the whole thing that I didn't necessarily care for his character at all as much in the amount of time that they dedicated to him. So I kind of get what they're doing as far as in the process of developing his character. I do also say that I didn't need to see that scene though with the 70-year-old ladies dancing with all their stuff hanging out.
Can I just touch upon that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it being provocative. I think it removing the provocation of sex is kind of what it's getting at, where you have a character where sex is not about pleasure, it's not about provocation, it's just an obligation. And I think that's what you see with him, is that it's a lot of things he does is not through pleasure but out of obligation or need, or just like the desire for finding or what have you. And I think regarding like the disjointedness of it, I think if you look at it saying like a narrative standpoint, maybe, but I think as an overall film, I don't think it's disjointed at all, because I think it's thematically they fit together really well. When you look, sorry,
no, they're fine.
Because what you have, with Phoenix, I think there's a lot to take from. I think there are a lot of different ideas it's going for. So maybe you'd say its ambition is really high, but I think the aspect of like the cult and what's saying about Scientology, I think that's really just. I don't think that's really what it's trying to focus on, or that's its desire. I think what it's really getting at, first and foremost, is the relationship of these two characters, and how they affect one another. And I think overall, what it's saying about sex is how, the obligation of it and how it's used for control. Because you look at the scene between Amy Adams and Philip Seymour Hoffman, you see that her control is she subverts. She uses basically sex as a subversion of control over Hoffman, and even though Hoffman has this facade of being the leader, I think in that scene you really see how much Amy Adams is really the person who's making the decisions, and how it's a sexual act that is not through pleasure but again obligation. So I think that scene in particular that you're talking about, where there's nudity there, and by adding in by showing all women in that aspect of it, because I think it's clear that you're through not Philip Seymour Hoffman, but Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix viewpoint in that aspect. I think you're just getting a view into his head where it's just, no matter who it doesn't matter what the woman looks like. It's just the idea of, it's just sex. It's just, again, it's not even like he finds pleasure in the human body anymore or anything like that. It's just there. It's just something that happens. There is no glorification of it at all. It's lost its luster in that aspect of it. So I think that's what I liked about it, and I think that's where the relationship between him and Hoffman is key, because it's like the thing he has that he can get something out of. It's like the one thing that he has, and I think that's interesting. And you see what he does to fight for it, even though I think it's pretty evident he doesn't necessarily believe anything he's really saying.
And I get that the film, I'm not saying that the film is trying to be about the Scientology aspect or about Philip Seymour Hoffman. I think the film is completely intending to tell the story of Joaquin Phoenix's character from beginning to end. That's what the main focus is. I'm just saying, like, I might have preferred a film that was more focusing on Philip Seymour Hoffman with Joaquin Phoenix as a side character instead of vice versa. Like, I feel like it's completely centered on Joaquin Phoenix.
So is the issue because you don't like the character? Like, what is the issue with that character per se?
I just didn't find him as interesting. I think I found something more interesting about the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, like what you're saying, where he's this guy who has this facade and he has this following, and he has to put on this face and he has to say certain things and he has to fight the critics. But then you get to see his relationship with his family, his relationship with his son, his the fact that Amy Adams is more so the one that's in control or calling the shots or trying to tell him or dictate to things what he should do and shouldn't do. His interaction with even some of the followers as he changes his opinions, and you have Laura Dern's I believe it's Laura Dern character question him. Like, I found all of that more interesting, and I just don't find as much interesting out of the aspect of you have I think it's just more of a personal preference on the character. Like, Joaquin Phoenix is the ex military person who obviously has baggage from that. He has the alcohol issues, he has the even through the therapist, when all he's seeing is the sex images in his head, with the ink blot, and that's all he's seeing. Like you said with the women, like that's all he sees them as. It's just like they're just for that purpose or whatever. He doesn't necessarily find, he's not someone looking for there's no part in this whole story where he's looking for like a soulmate, or like women don't satisfy that need for him. Like they're, like you said, they're just an obligation, that type of thing. And so that character in it of itself, for me, I would prefer to see more about Philip Seymour Hoffman's character and kind of the things that are going on inside his head. I think I already get what's going on.
My worry of doing that is that I find it more interesting if you don't know if he believes what he's saying. Like, is it hubris? Is it, is that what's causing him? Is it just him trying to, or is it him, like, is it a motive, like, financially? Like, what exactly is driving him? And I like not knowing that.
I'm not saying I need to know that. I just like seeing, I find it more entertaining seeing his reactions and his interactions with the different people, I guess, is what I'm saying. Mm. And I'm not saying Joaquin Phoenix couldn't play a part of that, because obviously he's someone who he's clinged on to, and he's tried to kind of like have as his little, I don't know if you want to use it.
Like a lackey?
Like a lackey or a sheep that he's kind of dragging along. Like, I think Joaquin Phoenix is still valuable in telling that story. I just didn't, since I didn't care for Phoenix's character as much, and I didn't find it as entertaining, I just would have liked more time on some of the other characters and had Phoenix just be more of a character that's still giving you that element that there is someone that, it's almost like a lackey or something like that, where he's kind of stringing them along or doing that type of thing. Like, I still think it adds something to it.
Yeah, I guess to me, I felt very balanced between those two characters. I didn't feel like, you probably spend a little bit more time with Phoenix because it is him, it is
just a little. I think it's pretty balanced, but it tips a little towards Phoenix.
I guess I like that. I don't know. I don't know. I find that character really interesting, and I find him just his plight intriguing. This guy who, I think there's a lot. I think his story very much. If you make him less of the movie, I think you fundamentally change a lot of what the movie's about. And especially, I think it definitely even ties into things like, the need of family. And especially you look at right after he is in the Navy, the first thing he's doing is taking photos of these families and he leaves kind of what you would assume is some sort of family within the Navy, and he's like placed into a world where he's basically, again, with that facade of trying to showcase the idea of what a family should be during this time, and clearly that's not what he's in. And I think within those characters, he finds that, or which is why I think he sticks with them, even though I don't think he completely buys into what they're saying. So I guess that's the plot I found interesting was him, and then again that relationship between him and Hoffman. I loved every moment they were seeing them together. Like, you have the jail scene, you have the I forget what they call it, but the scene where he's being audited. I guess if you don't like that character of Phoenix, and I think could easily be very unlikable. He's not the most unhinged is the word I would use, I guess. But I don't know if that's your issue. Maybe that would be the problem. But I guess my worry of doing that would be that it would change a lot of what I like about the movie.
Do you think Paul Thomas Anderson knew exactly the message that he was trying to give with this one, or do you think he was just trying to craft an interesting story that leaves for a lot of ambiguity as far as what he might be trying to tell or what he might not be trying to say? Do you think he had a crystal clear image in his mind of what he's trying to say with this film?
I would say so. I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't know if any director does to a certain extent. But I also think that I think if that was not the case, like, he didn't know what he was trying to do, it really wouldn't affect my take on the movie at all. Like, if a director has a certain way he feels the movie should be seen or what he's trying to do, that doesn't affect me one way or another. To me, it's not about what the director, let's say that. Like, it's the director, what the director's trying to say doesn't necessarily mean what the movie's going to say.
Right. I get that, but I still think there sometimes is a need for the movie to know what it's trying to say or what it's trying to. And I'm not saying this film doesn't. The only reason I'm asking is because I was trying to read on different praises, different critiques, different criticism, etc. And I was kind of drawn to what Roger Ebert said, and he kind of alludes to some of that. And I wasn't sure how I felt about it one way or the other, but he says he said, fabulously well acted and crafted, but when I reach for it, my hand closes on air. It has rich material and isn't clear what it thinks about it. It has 2 performances of Oscar caliber, but do they connect? And I was just trying to like think of that line and think of that phrase and see where I fell, or kind of what that said to me. And I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not saying that he doesn't have a clear picture of what he's trying to say, or the movie doesn't have a clear picture. I think it does. I think it is telling a certain thing, but I don't know. I just find it weird that it's where he got the influences for everything, kind of how it came together. And I'm not saying that, maybe disjointed is the wrong word, but because I do think, like you said, I do think they go together, and I do think there is a balance there, and I think they all there is an interconnection. And I'm not saying that there's not connections between all the different parts of it. I just, when you put it all together, for some reason I wasn't...
I mean, I would think like all movies are, in a lot of ways, if you are amalgamations of a lot of different ideas, or taking... I don't think that's like, unique for just this movie. You know what I mean? Like, I don't...
Right. No, I'm not saying it is.
I guess, I mean, and I also don't think necessarily that a movie has to be super clear on exactly what it's trying to say, or if it has to say just one thing, or it can't, or maybe it's like, there's a lot of ways to take this. I think like I said, But
I think there's one thing, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I think there's one thing in intentionally doing that, and one thing in just unintentionally putting a bunch of stuff together and then not having a clear vision of what it's saying. Like Christopher, like there was an article in our news story that we didn't get to that's available for people to click on the website post from Christopher Nolan about Inception, and about, obviously he made a clear choice to not hold our hands and not say this is what this is about, or I'm intentionally leaving some ambiguity there. I'm intentionally not going to say that this is crystal clear what this movie is saying, so I will let people interpret what they want to. That's one thing. But if you're doing it unintentionally, I think that's something completely different.
Yeah, I don't feel like it. I don't think anything about this movie is unintentional. I think every like every the design of every frame, like it. I think Anderson is Kubrickian in that aspect where everything is purposeful. I mean...
And that's what I was trying to decide in my head, if it was or wasn't. I'm not saying I felt it was or wasn't, but that's what I was grabbing.
If you look at the scene that you mentioned with Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, like when he is being the skeptic, and I think if that's a perfect example of how everything is purposeful, because if you just even look at the placement of every character in that scene, I think it says a lot. You have the fact that camera is always distant in that aspect of it, where you have the center is in one location, you have Freddie Quill who's in another location, you have Dodd who's in another one, and similar with Amy Adams. And you're always at a distance. You're never just in one location, and it's always like you're never getting that clear perspective. And I think too, like what you see in that is when you see him, like the camera's almost on the person listening, more so than the person talking. And what you end up seeing, I think, is like when he's being questioned, is the people around him and their reactions, and almost an ability to kind of hold in their emotions. I think Amy Adams is like brilliant in that moment, because there are times where it does just focus on her, and she's just like amazing, like this look on her face of just disgust, and it looks like she's gonna like snap in that aspect of it. But I think it's interesting too that you have Quill in the background, like separate from it all, just as like this overseer, or just as like the observer in that situation. I think like those type of moments are purposeful, and I think that's saying a lot, again, without saying anything, without like it being spoken to you within the context of a plot or narrative, just the placement of the character. So I don't think by any means for someone to be unintentional in the ambiguity of a film to be unintentional would mean to me that like the filmmaking in itself is sloppy, or it's not purposeful, and I don't get that at all. Like I think there's there are certain, I mean it's kind of a little bit unfair because I'm someone who's seen this multiple times, but there are like certain elements that run throughout, and that use of water, or even bodily fluids in some ways, and like and how they punctuate scenes. So I don't get the sense that it's at all accidental that there's interpretation here, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it, and that, there even in the sense of what's real and what's dream. Like, near the, not to give anything away, but like near the end, there's the theater scene where he's in the theater by himself, and if that's in fact, a dream or really happening. And I think it's also, this is kind of a spoiler, but I guess not necessarily really, but the fact that the only time that we see Philip Seymour Hoffman, Joaquin Phoenix, and Amy Adams in a scene together, like in one shot together, is the very end. They're never seen in the same shot. So, I think those things like show that or like kind of the breadcrumbs to tell you that there's more, that there is things here outside of just a narrative or outside of just me telling you a story. There are elements in here that are meant to kind of interpret what he's trying to say. So I never got that sense of like, I just don't know what I have here. And if that's the case, I don't think there's ever going to be a clear answer of, is this intentional, is it unintentional? But I think the way you can kind of make a criticism of that is by looking at how well the film's made. And to me, it is pretty, methodical in that way.
Amanda, we haven't given you a chance to talk.
I feel like we've been really back and forth. Everyone.
No, you're fine. We've been going back and forth, but anything that you wanted to add that you didn't get to say about The Master or reactions to what we've been saying?
Well, I don't know. Having just seen this once, I can't pick it apart too much. So I think Dan has the advantage on us there, where he's been able to, take in the movie a second time and pick up some of those things that we might have missed. But as far as what I was doing throughout the whole movie was trying to figure out the relationships between the characters, as far as, the characters with relationships that have like the power and the control flow back and forth to other relationships where I'm trying to figure out what is this person gaining by being in a relationship with this person. Why do they want to have the relationship that they do with that person? And I thought that was pretty interesting.
And I'm probably coming across as like I hated the film, and I don't think I didn't hate it. I think this is, for me, 10 times better than Inherent Vice. So I definitely like it better than that film. But if I was given a score on The Master, I'm probably like right in the 6 range for me, like a 6 out of 10. What do you think, Amanda?
I'll give it a 4.
A 4? Much lower than me. Dan, I'm assuming you're in the 9, 10 range?
I want to give it a 10, 9.5, because I would like, I do think, like I said, that I didn't say anything negative, but like, I think Amanda made a good point about what the purpose of, like, what are they getting out of this relationship. I think that's a intriguing aspect of it. But I do think there is some question. Like, although I would say that I don't think it's unintentionally that it's me. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling.
No, you're fine.
Although I do think that there's meaning here that is purposeful. I do think that it probably could have done, like the only thing I think that I would have done differently maybe was, I think Phoenix's character, there are times where I think that it's almost borderline, I can't think of the word, I don't know. Sorry,
We've kept you up too late.
Yeah. I hope we can edit this out, but
we can.
So I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of the word. I just rewind, start over. Just the reason I want to give it a 10, I think sometimes like there are scenes or moments where I think it's just maybe Tom Anderson being a little too much in love with Anderson, and I'm like, okay, you can cut this back. I don't think you literally need to have an actor punch another actor to make this point, which I think happens. It's almost like it's just actors kind of taking it a little bit too far in certain scenes. Like that kind of was a little taken aback by it, where it's like, I get it's an exercise in acting, but I think there's a point where it's like you can kind of like not. I think you can take that too seriously and almost become a little bit pretentious in that end. It's not a great deal, but there are certain moments that I felt that way. But yeah, to me, it's like a 9.5, 9.5 within there. And when we get to our best of the decade, so far list. I'm sure it'll come up again.
So we're all across the board on Master, from 9s to 6s to 4s. So
honestly, you giving a 6 is about about a little is higher than I expected you to give it. So.
All right. See, I surprise you every once in a while. All right. Well, looking ahead here to next weekend and stuff that's either coming out in theaters as you're listening to this, or stuff that's coming out to Blu-ray here this next coming Tuesday. We got some options. Remember, you can only pick to either go see one, and it's your only chance to see that film in the theater. If you don't pick it, you never get to see that film in the theater. Or it's a Blu-ray, and if you don't pick to buy it, you can never buy it on Blu-ray here. So we got Kingsman: The Secret Service being released on Blu-ray, Red Army, Mission Impossible: The Quadrilogy. Is that a word?
I think Alien started it with the Alien Quadrilogy, and it's gone since then.
We got Serena, Justified, the final season, Thunderbirds, the complete series, or Victor Hugo's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, an old classic for Blu-ray releases. And theater releases, like we talked about. The one that I forgot to mention when we were talking about our box office in the opening was Love and Mercy, which is the Brian Wilson movie.
Oh, yeah.
With John Cusack and Paul Dano and Paul Giamatti and Elizabeth Banks. So that one's coming out. We had Entourage. We have a film called Testament of Youth starring Alicia Vikander and Kit Harington and Taron Egerton and Emily Watson and Haley Atwell. Goodness. Spy, like we talked about with Melissa McCarthy, Insidious Chapter 3, and some other ones. So if you can only buy one or watch one, Amanda, which one are you doing?
I'm going to buy Kingsman: Secret Service.
You're buying Kingsman: The Secret Service. You're stealing my thunder. Dan, what would you do there?
I would buy Justified, the final season.
All right.
I don't know if that's cheating, but
no, you can do that. I'd actually go see Love and Mercy because I loved the Beach Boys when I was growing up, so I'm interested to see that story, even though maybe it'll be disappointing, but I would like to see more about that. So, all right, as far as the question for this next week, I was interested in what your guys' take was on Dan and I's conversation about ratings, kind of what you take away from that, how you feel ratings should be, or just anything kind of expounding or expanding on our conversation for that. So before I close out, Dan, anything else that you wanted to say this week? Or
do you want to do the assignments for next week?
Yes, that's usually a good thing to do. I'm glad you remembered it, because otherwise I would have forgot it. So what do you got for me?
Okay, so I gave you a movie last week. I felt like I've been giving you and Amanda like movies that are kind of Short Room 12, which is like, kind of it's definitely a depressing and a movie I know you probably weren't going to like, but I thought was important. So I thought I would give you options to this end. And okay. So I have one, which is, I don't know if Amanda likes this director, but I know, Kevin, you do, and it's like an adventure film based upon a real life, like true life historical event. I have another movie, which is, let's see, it's a foreign film, a drama, starring one of my favorite actors working today. And it's more of a not romantic comedy is a strong word, but it's a low-budget indie comedy, say in the same vein as a Woody Allen film, but maybe more modern day.
I think Amanda would probably go with the first one.
Yeah.
Okay. It is okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, for her behalf, I'll go with the first one.
Okay. So the director is Peter Weir.
Okay.
Which I know you like Master and Commander, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And the movie currently streaming on Netflix. It's like an epic adventure film called The Way Back. Have you seen it?
I have not seen that yet.
The Way Back?
The Way Back.
Yeah.
It stars Colin Farrell, Ed Harris, a few other people. It's about basically people who escape from a World War II prison and try to travel to India, and it's like their quest. It's not like a groundbreaking movie, but like knowing you like those epic, like kind of like the based on true events historical films. Yeah. I thought maybe that'd be up your alley.
Cool. We'll definitely watch that. Now, I consulted your database, and hopefully I'm not wrong, but I don't believe you've seen this one, and I figured since we're doing our look back at the last 5 years that maybe it's something that I've heard a lot of other people talking about. If you've seen it since I've gotten your database, I apologize, but have you seen the film Shame?
I have not seen Shame.
All right, so I'm going to put that one out there because it seems like one that a lot of people talk pretty highly about. Also starring your fantasy guy, Michael Fassbender. We might watch that one as well because neither one of us has seen it either. So it might be one that all three of us could watch. But I'm going to put it out there because I think it's something that we should at least check off the list before we make our decade list.
I have not seen that. So Perfect.
So, all right. So there we go for the assignments for next week. And anybody listening out there, you can watch some of those movies too and be ready for the discussion along with us. So you can always join in on the homework. So thanks as always for tuning in to the Cinema Geeks this week. You can contact us in a bunch of different ways. First, we have a Twitter. So you can follow us on Twitter. The show name there is Cinema Geekcast. So it's a combination of both the Cinema Geeks and obviously the Geekcast Radio Network. So you have Cinema Geekcast. Follow us there. You can follow me at Optimus Solo. Amanda?
Hard Candy Mandy, eyes, no eyes.
Dan?
I'm at Movie Revolt. O's and V's, I guess.
You can also obviously visit the Facebook page for the network, Geekcast Radio Network, and you can keep up to date with everything that the network puts out. So that is it for us. Be sure to check in next week for your next chance to listen to us, the Cinema Geeks. All right.
Yeah, sorry if I felt like I blacked out during the master discussion.
You blacked out?
No, you're perfectly fine.
What happened? I blacked out. It's like
What did I
scene,
say?
It's like that scene in old school when they're debating, and he's like, "What just happened? I blacked out."
Yeah, sorry, I just...
No, that's right. It's late. You're up late, and the baby's ready to eat.
Oh, yeah, he's a little overdue. I think he's very angry at me right now.
All right. We're like old pros.
Print.
I'm going to do one take here.
Ray Charles. I only know that from the movie, so...
We were playing this movie trivia game the other day with one of our friends, and it's like has cards on it, or you have cards and it has like it gives you like a year and a genre, so it'll be like 1996 drama or something like that, and then there's 4 different types of clues that you can ask for depending on like what cards you have, and you can either ask for cast, characters, a quote, or like a story little blurb, and like. One of them was the movie Ray, and it's like a blind or a blind R&B singer. We're like, what? Come on!
I crushed it. Just saying.
That is giving it away.
Stevie Wonder? No, it's not. Wait.
Was there a movie on?